Hi, and welcome to this week's Three Legs, Four Wheels F1 podcast. It's Paul here with
Sean,
Chris,
and Lee.
two races
at the same circuit.
with two names. Although Austria is better than Styria for action.
yes, I would agree.
I would say qualifying in Styria was better than qualifying in Austria.
I agree.
Yeah.
But Styrian racing, not up to Austrian racing.
It was okay. It after having an incredible Grand Prix for the first race of the season, having an okay Grand Prix for the second race of the season made it seem
Still better than France.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It was boring, but there was stuff going on. There was good racing in the midfield.
there was quite a lot going on. You didn't really know, sort of even at the front end, it kind of looked like the pace was being controlled by the leader, but behind that, anything could happen.
I think what took the wind out of the race's sails was the fact that from literally lap 203, you thought Max hasn't got the car for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was race over at that point. As far as a race for the win goes, unless someone had some sort of problems.
Yeah. I think, Lee, I saw you tweet at one point, this needs a safety car. And I think about 2 minutes before that, I had said something similar. It was just like, no, it needs just a little extra something in the middle. It was a bit of a lull and then good end.
It was like the courier to a place that you've not been to before. Like, yeah, it's all right. Could do with a bit more spice. I'm not entirely sure what that was.
That was a
Animal
cat.
or child?
Was that cat?
Yeah. It's okay.
I don't know if that got picked up on the microphone.
I think
but that was
I think Lady Cat might be getting boned.
Oh dear.
Oh.
Is it that time of the year?
Oh, nasty.
Yes, what happened in front of all my work colleagues on the first video conference call of lockdown.
Cat porn on Zoom.
Okay.
Bruno decided that I thought at first he just wanted Dizzy's seat. No,
He
wanted the contents of Dizzy's seat.
Got you.
Right in the range of the webcam that I was having this
I think
really
you're gonna
serious
say
work
something
meeting
else
on.
then and not in the range of.
Yeah, no, right in front of the webcam. I'm having this meeting. I couldn't see what was going on behind me. All I said was, I've got to go for a second. There's a cat fight behind me. And the last thing I heard as I took the headset off was, mate, that's not a fight.
Yeah.
We will do the review of the race shortly because we've got
A bit of news.
We've got 9 teams to talk about that raced.
We've got 10 teams to discuss, but 9
Yeah,
teams that race.
9 teams that raced, 10 teams to talk about. But yeah, Monday news. Looks like Bottas has got himself a new, guess what? 1 year
Be
contract.
surprised. I'm
Shocking
surprised.
I'm not surprised it's 1 year.
I'm not surprised.
With
it's
the
one year.
with the
1
option
year.
for more.
We were talking about this last week, weren't we, about the potential of George Russell maybe moving up to Williams, from Williams, to Mercedes next year. And I'm pretty sure George's already got a contract with Williams for 2021. Now, obviously, Mercedes would be the people who would break that if they wanted to take George back. But it looks like they've just gone, well, these cars are here until the end of 2021 anyway. We may as well just stick Valtteri back in. Because if all things go normally, okay, we are only 2 races into the season, but if all things go normally, we're only 5 months away from winter testing.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
So,
I mean, also don't forget under a normal year we're coming up to the summer break, which is when all the contract negotiations happen.
yeah.
Technically, we are in the silly season.
We're 6 months away from car launches, put it that way.
I'd also point out as well that
Which would be the same. It's going to
Yeah.
be pointless, isn't it?
for a
Malibu
team,
Stacey's got a new hat.
for a team that's going to sort of give both their drivers an extra, it's not an extra, a decent shot at whatever they're doing, like Mercedes does. Hamilton and Bottas are both similar heights as well, whereas George is quite tall.
I see what you mean, yeah, because Renault had that issue with Hülkenberg being quite tall, didn't they? So then Danny Ricciardo's not short.
Now there's Ocon.
Ocon's taller than both of them, I think.
I
Yeah.
did enjoy what
Good point.
Martin Brundle said in the commentary about Ocon. I can't remember whether it was Saturday or Sunday. They were talking about Alonso going to Renault, and they said, "Well, there's quite."
Is he?
Yep, definitely. We can talk about it more later if you want.
Nobody mentioned that.
He said, there's quite a big height difference between them. And Martin Brundle turned around and said, "Yeah, I've got a funny feeling Alonso's going to be just fine in that car. Maybe Ocon will be a little cramped."
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Why would Alonso be in the Renault?
What?
Why would Alonso be in the Renault?
Because he's going to win a world championship in 2022.
No.
No,
But what
I
about
disagree.
But what about 2021? Is he coming
Well,
back or something?
Well,
Yeah.
it's crazy,
He
isn't it?
is, yeah. But we
I mean, stop it with these conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
Next one. My next prediction is Vettel goes back to Red Bull.
That's likely
Wild.
at the moment.
It's
possibly,
been officially denied, so it's
So
clearly on the
See,
cards.
I think that is less likely than Alonso going to Renault. I had that down as a slam dunk for ages.
No, I see. I didn't, and then when it was announced, I thought about it. I thought, okay, it's fair enough. But then, the more I thought about it, the more I think it's a bad idea for both parties.
I listened to, I think it was Autosport. It was either Autosport or The Race. It was one of the two. And do you know the
Well, everyone on the race used to be on Autosport,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
easy to make,
You know the
very
really-
easy to mix it up.
You know the really big guy that's on that used to be on Autosport.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's really good, and he pointed out. He said, "I don't think it matters for either party." He said, for Fernando's term going there doesn't necessarily, if he doesn't win a world championship, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a failure. He just has to be given a car capable of competing, and him show the world that he's still Fernando Alonso and he's still a force to be reckoned with.
Well, I mean, Daniel Ricciardo proved that he did some of the pre-testing for next year with that crash that he had in practice, because it shows you can actually slam the car into the wall and the driver doesn't get too badly hurt and the session can carry on.
Yeah.
So when they get Ocon to do that for real during the races next year when Alonso comes back, yeah.
Fine. I do think, I mean, we're going to talk about them later on, but it is worth noting that car, I don't think there's a lot between the Renault and McLaren. If we say McLaren have made time, pace up, Renault are looking pretty good.
Yeah, Renault are looking okay. I would say they're probably not on. Well, again, we'll talk about it during the race review, but probably not quite there with Racing Point and McLaren.
I don't think McLaren's there with Racing Point. I think they've got the drivers to be there with Racing Point.
I think so.
And I think that's the same with why Ricciardo was up there.
Yeah, I would agree. But the reason I don't think it's a great idea for either party is because I don't think Renault are able to make that jump even for new rules in 2022.
It's interesting. I mean,
And
they are. It's whether they want to or not.
Yeah, but even still, with the gap as it is at the moment, I mean, I said on Twitter, we're lambasting Ferrari for being, so far down.
Yeah.
So far down so far this year. And Renault are probably roughly around the same point as Ferrari, probably in real terms.
I think
Hard to tell after this weekend.
I think when we get to a different circuit, I think you find Renault ahead. I think Ferrari are in real trouble.
Yeah, they very well could be. And today, Ross Brawn has said that it's going to be years for Ferrari to recover this because it's a ridiculous thing. So it's not. I don't think it's going to be the jump that Alonso wants it to be, and for Alonso to be in a competitive car. That's why I disagree with the comment that your man said on the. What was it? Autosport? Sorry, you said.
Yeah.
I disagree with his comment. Alonso doesn't need to prove that he's still Alonso and can still do it, because we all know that he's still Alonso and that he can still do it.
And by God, he's fond of telling us that fact.
But I do think he wants, if he was to come in, and let's say he gets a couple of podiums, maybe even a win if the wind's in the right direction for him, over a couple of years, and he completely outperforms that car. I don't think. I think he's looking at this as a platform to get to another team.
I don't, and this is the thing, even if he is.
No, but I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think that's what he's thinking.
But even if it is, how short-sighted is that? It's ridiculously
I've got a theory.
short-sighted.
Alonso is Hulk Hogan. Keeps coming back. Going to be world champion, brother. Shadow of his former self every time.
We'll see.
We will see, yeah, we will.
But see, the thing is,
All right, he's got better hair than Hulk.
I'm not convinced. I love seeing young drivers get through. Right, great. I'm not saying I'm against young drivers getting through.
I'm just trying to think of all the young drivers that you slagged off over the last few years, but carry on.
But rightly so. There's been drivers coming to Formula One which shouldn't have been there. There's been drivers coming in that might have ended up being perfectly good Formula One drivers, but they've come in too early, much in the same way as the way the music industry treats young bands now. But since Vettel, I feel that Formula One has been trying to find the next Sebastian Vettel since he came in. And you can put Lewis in the same sort of category. And I'm not sure that the youth push into Formula One has been totally beneficial for it.
That's fine, but Fernando Alonso coming back into Formula One, if he does 2021 and 2022 with Renault, He'll be 41 by that point.
How old was Nigel Mansell when he won a championship?
40. And that was his final full
Oh,
year
yeah,
in Formula
yeah.
1.
But the thing is, if we end up with slower Formula 1 cars, which we're going to end up with, yeah?
Yeah.
Slower Formula 1 cars that rely more on driver ability than what's strapped to the top of the car, I don't see any reason why you can't see like drivers staying in Formula 1 longer if they want to.
I don't think it would be a success for Fernando Alonso to come back and maybe win a race. I think that's a complete fallacy. It's short-sighted on Renault's point because he's only going to be there 2, maybe 3 seasons.
I think it has to be a mission statement for them. They have to do something.
It's all in, isn't it?
Yeah,
if it works, cool, good for them. If it doesn't work, we probably see them disappear at the end of next year or the year after.
And I agree with
think
what Dan said on Twitter. I don't know if anybody caught what Dan said on Twitter. He said that Renault have a lot of problems, and it's not an insurmountable thing to jump, like to make their car into a world championship. But their problems are not the drivers.
I don't know. I don't know what the personnel situation is. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, best case scenario, if it goes tits up, they have an excuse to fire a beatable.
Yeah. I don't know what the technical side's like. But I know what you mean, because it's not like you can pull out like a James Key or something like that straight out of your head.
I mean, they've got Pat Fry at the moment, who he's not shit.
No, it's true. And
Renault also have a history of lying to people to get them to sign.
They do have a history of lying.
Red
to
Bull,
people
they lied to get them to sign another 2-year deal for engines. Which is when they were finally rebadged tag at the end of that engine deal, weren't they? And then because of the bad PR that went between them, Danny Ricciardo, we think Renault probably said, we've definitely got a race-winning car for next year. Look at these.
He said he was getting podiums last year, didn't he, when he first went there? It was podiums next year, race win this year.
Yeah, and it's not happening.
Do you think McLaren can win a world championship in 2022?
Don't know, to be honest with you. It depends how 2021 goes for them with Mercedes power. It's possible.
That's the thing. I think
but it's outside. I think for McLaren.
That's the problem, because they realistically can't start work on the 2022 car now until next year when they've got access to Mercedes power units. A lot of the teams are going to be starting work on the 2022 car during 2020, because with the engine freeze, they know what's going to be going in the back. They've got the exact dimensions because they're not changing.
I think McLaren will have a black plastic lump.
Yeah.
This is the size of the engine in the gearbox. Design your car around that.
I think they'll have the dimensions and weight.
Probably,
all that sort of
and
stuff.
they
just not
were
how it works.
before the 2021 regulations were delayed. They were meant to be getting new regulations and new power unit, whereas they're now at least going to have a year of power unit before they get what the hell is this car?
It's kind of the reverse of what happened with Honda, because they had a year of Mercedes turbos, which they couldn't do a great deal with because they were getting themselves ready to put the Honda in. At least when Honda came in, McLaren had got access to more Honda data than...
But did they? Did they actually speak to Honda and get the data?
But that was McLaren's old self. But I think it would be more likely for Ricciardo to win a race in 2021 than Alonso in a Renault.
I think that's fair. That's a fair estimation. I think Alonso's already said to Renault, according to Cyril Abiteboul, that he has no interest in next year and he wants Renault to focus fully on 2022.
Yeah, I just think it's a bit, as I say, short-sighted on both.
I think
parts.
it's fine that he's saying that now. It's what happens when he gets in that car and he gets stuck behind like an Ocon or a Lance Stroll, and he gets pissed off and he starts slagging the car off. They're going to be like, no, PR, no.
I think the difference is, I don't understand the knocking of Alonso for slagging McLaren off, because that was ridiculous, the Honda situation. You're talking about a season where they just didn't finish races. They were having hundreds of places in grid penalties per race because of all the replacements they had to do.
Yeah, and it was a well thought out thing on his part when he said GP2 engine at Honda's home race in Japan.
And you know what? It worked, because Honda's engine is all right now.
But is that down to the difference in culture between the Ron Dennis toxic era McLaren.
I don't think it's anything to do with Ron Dennis. I think it's all to do with having the extra car. They had a test bed. They had a team there in Toro Rosso that they don't even care what happens to the drivers, let alone the cars.
But I mean, if you saw the Amazon series, the Grand Prix Driver one that was meant to focus on Stoffel, and it turned into the Honda drama, all the way through. There was things like McLaren and Honda not sharing information with each other. Honda wanted to work in Japan, McLaren insisting that the work in Woking. It's really hard to say.
Well, McLaren wanted them to work with other people, didn't they? And Honda didn't want to outsource any of their stuff. But in the end, they did, didn't they? They did take people from outside of Honda in to help them.
They had to, yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, what McLaren was saying to Honda was right. McLaren was right.
Yes and no. It's right in that obviously it's fixed the car in the long term, but it's damaged that relationship with the supplier to the point that it ended.
Oh yeah. But there was no point in it carrying on at that point.
But he can't slag off a Renault engine next year.
No, and Honda was not the full sum of McLaren's problems. There were other things.
Oh
going
yeah,
on
absolutely.
In McLaren
But the thing is, I don't think if Alonso's in, let's say the realistic place for that Renault, let's just take a snapshot of this year and say what 7th, 8th.
Yeah, low points finish. Yeah.
I think if Lando is scraping a podium in McLaren, I think Alonso is enough to bridge that gap to McLaren. So I think you'll find his Renault, much like Daniel Ricciardo, he'll probably be a little bit further down the road from Ricciardo because I think he's a better flag to flag racer.
Yeah.
I think as long as he's up there fighting with people, I think he'll be all right. That's not what he was upset with. What he was upset with was the fact he was just driving around at the back of the field.
But towards the end of his McLaren time, he wasn't really. They were scoring points.
Yeah, only that one year with Renault, but you could see that guy was burnt out by then. Let's face it, he'd already started doing part-time IndyCar drives at that point.
Yeah.
Here's a question. What happens if he doesn't win the Indy 500 this year?
Don't know.
Because Renault are not going to want prized asset not in car at Monaco.
I think
then Nico Hülkenberg does next year's Monaco Grand Prix.
Or your Chinese guy.
Or Grand Yu Zhou.
Yeah. I think there's what Fernando Alonso wants, Fernando Alonso gets.
I don't think, although I think if Alonso doesn't win the Indy 500 this year and he enters it next year, well, he's going to have to find a new team because McLaren aren't going to put him in, are they?
No.
Very true.
And he won't get a Honda driver. He will have to find another Chevy team to take him on for that one race.
Yeah.
And do Renault have a partnership with any of the other teams?
I don't know. I mean,
not that I know of. But
I think if he does well in this Indy 500, like he did, in the first one where they remembered to bring a wheel for the car and the little things,
but like putting the right gearbox in.
That's the one. I think. I don't think there'll be a lack of takers for Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, I think he would get a drive in Indy 500 next year. It's whether Renault would actually want the poster boy not in the car.
Yeah, I think the other thing would be as well, it's not... I think Fernando Alonso, if the Renault is...
Poster granddad.
Competitive, competitive and maybe sort of podium type competitive or top end points competitive, I think he'd prefer to do a season in Formula One than go and do an Indy. It's... You get people do awful, long... There's a lot of time to race in Indy.
That's true. Yeah, you can. He's probably got a good decade.
Yeah.
What's Tony Kanaan? He's still 46, 47.
Yeah.
Emerson Fittipaldi.
Fittipaldi was doing it. I think it was pushing 50.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, he was world champion in Formula One in 72. I think Emerson Fittipaldi was world champion, and then he was
IndyCar champion in 94.
Something like that. Yeah.
Or at 94.
Yeah. Raising all of his children and grandchildren.
He's got so many kids. I was on his family tree the other day. He's still creating them. He's got kids that are younger than their nieces and nephews. And it's a complicated tree, the Fittipaldi tree.
All the branches of the family tree, if you actually squint, it looks like one of those hardcore metal bands.
Yes.
Patreon throwback.
Yeah. Or throw forward if you haven't listened to it yet.
That is right, Patreon throw. On the same thing, Horner saying that he's not interested in Vettel after the bringing back home conversation with Dietrich Mateschitz and was it Helmut Marko?
Helmut Marko was seen talking to Dietrich Mateschitz afterwards, wasn't he?
Yeah.
After Vettel was seen talking to Mateschitz, but the with Alonso filling the Renault seat, that of course means there's one fewer seat for Vettel to take in Formula One next year. So the available seats are even fewer than they were before.
There's two which are worth Vettel. I think you can boil it down to two.
You think the Aston Martin seat when they become the team next year?
Again, they've come out this weekend and said no, we're sticking with our two. So.
Well, Perez has a multi-year contract, and so does Stroll.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Stroll
would be very
has the
difficult.
right surname.
I think Stroll's contract's up the end of next year. I know it's
maybe, but I think Perez has a multi-year deal.
They always say multi-year deals. Well, what does that mean?
It means there's clauses.
Perez has got a deal with Aston Point until his money runs out.
Yeah, it'll be until his money runs out,
or he wants to give his money to another team.
It'll be if he gets an offer from X team, Y team, etc.
I think you'll find Perez's deal runs out next year, because I think when you look at when he signed that deal, and he was the only driver with a contract in 2021. If you remember, he was the first driver that took a contract into 2021. I can't see, if he's the only driver that was contracted then, I can't see it taking him past that.
It
could have an extension clause.
Oh, there could be extension clauses, but that's what I mean. I think it doesn't help Vettel. Don't get me wrong.
No.
It doesn't help Vettel for next year.
There still isn't a say to what will be Aston Martin next year.
But the only issue is he's been really good at bringing money into teams. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, he brings about $12 million a year with him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Lawrence Stroll doesn't need $12 million.
It's nice though, isn't it?
It's nice,
like,
but it means $12 million that he doesn't have to spend, and regardless of how rich you are,
spending cap.
Do you know what would bring more than $12 million into a team? A 4-time world champion driver in Aston Martin.
And don't forget as well, though, it's not just the race team. He's got the whole bloody car brand as well. So his money's got to stretch.
But again, if you're looking to try and boost the car brand, then what better way to do it than with a Formula One world champion?
Yeah, but don't forget the spending cap's coming in. They were not allowed to spend all that money. So
if
the driver's going to bring in the money.
Drivers' salaries don't count towards the spending cap.
No.
Yeah, but I mean, if a driver like Perez is bringing in money already from sponsors,
he's paying himself, isn't he?
Yeah. There's absolutely he's paying for himself. He's probably paying Lance's wages as well. To be fair.
Yeah.
Do you think Lance has wages, or does he just have an allowance?
I did trust fund.
I did make a joke on Twitter at the weekend about he signed a multi-year $3 million a year deal with the team, and he says it's a little bit of a cut from my pocket money, but I'm sure I can live with
it.
I don't know.
Yeah, but would you say that Red Bull would be a viable return for Sebastian? And if
technically there is a Mercedes seat that hasn't been signed up for next year because the Hamilton contract is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Can't see it not happening because I mean one of the Mercedes statements made to Sky Germany today was now we can start work on finalising the discussions with Lewis.
The only reason Lewis wouldn't Mercedes don't sign Lewis Hamilton is if Lewis decides to leave Formula One.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Because there's nowhere for Lewis Hamilton to go either if he were to decide to
And that probably will drag as well because he negotiated his last contract himself, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
So that because they're like race. Now that's not going to happen for a while.
Because he doesn't have a manager.
No, does it himself. Knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he used to have the same manager as the Spice Girls, but he binned him off.
There's another thing which we haven't thought of here as far as Vettel going to Red Bull. We know last year that Max had a performance clause, didn't he, in his contract?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I know that Red Bull looks like a good car this year, but it doesn't look capable of winning Grand Prix. And
maybe.
Yeah. So if he's got a win clause in his contract that he needs to be able to be somewhere within the fight for the World Championship, I can see him not being in it.
But where else does he go now?
The thing was though with Max's clause, I read that it was I think it was third or above in the World Drivers' Championship by the summer break.
That was last year, yeah.
Last year,
Which was February technically this year.
For that to come into effect, so by the midpoint of the season, he was third at that point of the season.
And so that you triggered.
So that automatically triggered it. And if he's got a similar one for this year,
he's not third at the moment.
No, it's Lando.
But with 10 races confirmed, we're not halfway through the season.
No,
we're still
cool.
three races. We're still three races away from technically the half point of the season confirmed so far.
But the thing is, if last year they almost lost their lead driver that they were putting all their eggs in, there is no one else for Red Bull. If Max Verstappen decided to leave, for what's available to them, if they still want to do this promoting in-house, and I'm taking Vettel in that, there is no one that they can do.
But where does Max go?
That is the issue, isn't it?
It's all fine and good saying Max saying, well, I don't want to take up the option.
Mercedes would take him.
But Bottas has just signed a new contract, and if they're doing everything they can to keep Hamilton.
I think Max will be in the car next year. That's what I mean. But what I mean is you take Vettel on as an insurance policy. So if Max decides to leave you in 2022, you've still got a number one driver.
I don't think you can put Vettel and Verstappen in the same team.
Christ, that'd be messy, I feel.
I don't think you can have the guy who they are throwing all their eggs into one basket, and then the guy who they won their 4 world championships comes back in and just expects to sit behind the young lad.
They would have to number 2 Vettel. It would be hilarious.
I don't know if you were worried that you were going to lose him at the end of next year, because I think this is the thing. Things are more complex.
How do you reshuffle your other Red Bull drivers as well? Because if you're going to put Verstappen in with Vettel, that obviously loses Albon.
Albon goes back. Kvyat gets put in the blender.
Kvyat gets binned, and Gasly and Albon are teammates. Old Red Bull friend.
Yeah, and Albon's sent back down pretty much under the proviso. Look, guys, this might happen if we end up with a free seat. Albon, you come back up in 2022.
Yeah. Maybe. We did talk last week about how they have no young drivers, didn't we?
They've Yuki Tsunoda, who...
Yeah, but I mean, as terms of license points.
He could be there at the end of this year.
Could he?
Yeah. He was moderate in F3, and he looks business end F2. So
I don't think anyone's going to want to take an unproven driver in 2022.
Yeah, but Yuki Tsunoda is Japanese and backed by Honda.
If
Honda are like, you take this guy, then you take that guy.
I think it's more likely he ends up in a Toro Rosso.
Yes.
We thought that maybe Nobuharu Matsushita might end up in a AlphaTauri Toro Rosso at some point.
Yeah, he got the test last year, and he just appears to have dropped off the radar completely.
He was not that competitive, was he, in F2?
No, he's become professional F2 driver. He's still there.
There's another reason I believe this as well, though, that I just think that somebody overhearing Dietrich Mateschitz saying, bring Sebastian home, it's just...
means that they're signing Sebastian Bourdais.
No.
Buemi. They had all the Sebastians at one time, didn't they?
Is Buemi still the reserve driver or something?
As far as I know, they still own him, but
But it doesn't sound like something you'd make up. It doesn't sound like a lie. Do you know what I mean? It sounds, if you were gonna invent a story to fill column inches, I think you'd either make something more dramatic or it would be something more normal. That sounds so weird and fatherly. I don't think it's made up.
I mean, the conversation probably happened, but don't forget, at the end of the day, Helmut Marko probably controls Dietrich Mateschitz.
And Helmut Marko did want Corona camp a couple of months ago. No, he is an entirely sane individual.
Correct.
You know, what you did...
No mistake, it's Dietrich Mateschitz, he will have the word in that team.
Yeah, but Marko probably replied to him that didn't get overheard. Yes, I'll bring him back home, but do you want to see your family again?
Don't forget as well, before he signed for Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton stormed into Red Bull and allegedly demanded a contract with them for the following year. I think that was 2012. Demanded a contract with Red Bull to prove that he could beat Vettel in the same car.
And Jenson Button got offered the Toro Rosso seat in 2009 if Braun hadn't have been a thing.
Yeah.
So they aren't averse to bringing people in from the outside.
No, David Coulthard.
Yeah. But I mean that was at first.
That was way back. Wasn't it? That was...
You know, you've got a choice. You can have David Coulthard or Robert Dornbos.
Yeah,
it's Robert Dornbos.
Yeah.
Still does work for Red Bull apparently, like parade work, and when they put an old car out on a street. And,
he does like donuts in.
So does last week's driver's steward who absolutely hammered Lewis Hamilton and Vitantonio Liuzzi.
Okay.
Which was an interesting choice.
Liuzzi, they had a exhibition day in Sao Paulo last year, and Liuzzi stuck it in the barriers.
Yes.
He is one, though. Do you not think that...
I remember you saying Liuzzi sounds like a real racing driver's name. It's just a shame that he's not a real racing driver.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
It was Liuzzi that ended up on top of Michael Schumacher at Abu Dhabi a few years back, wasn't it?
I think it might
have been.
Yeah.
Do you not think, because I think this, Max is probably the only driver out there that Mercedes would sign in their second car with little regard for what Lewis said. I think they would take Max over the possibility of upsetting Lewis Hamilton. I don't think there'd be anyone else on the grid they'd do that for.
I believe Lewis when he says he doesn't have any clause about his teammate.
I do.
I don't think they would sort of consider his
no,
side
but at the same
anyway.
time,
I think he'd do some foot stamping. I think if he might say all these things, but let's say they did decide to sign Alonso, I think there would be some words had in the back room.
At the same time, we're about 3-ish, maybe 2-3 years away from Lewis Hamilton being not only the record holder of like almost everything in Formula One, but also if he chooses to retire as a Mercedes driver without going to drive for Ferrari or anyone else, he is essentially a Mercedes ambassador, and it will be employed by Mercedes for life.
Oh yeah.
Because so you've got to think in that respect. You probably don't want to upset him to the point where he'll just go, okay, I'll go and join Ferrari next year, then see you later.
Absolutely, but if you're that team, you've got to think past Lewis because he's getting to that point.
Yeah, no, thinking past Lewis is fine, but I think Mercedes already have that in George Russell for a start, and Bottas is. I will not surprised that Bottas has signed for 2021. I will be surprised, unless of course he wins a world championship, if they sign him for 2022.
Because they're all in on Russell at the moment as well. They don't really have anyone in like F2, F3.
No, I saw somebody on Twitter asking, well, what will happen to Esteban Ocon? He signed for Renault.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Well,
I think they have
only
recall,
on loan.
but
They can't recall him for 2 years. But Mercedes still, in the grand scheme of things, own his ass as soon as Renault don't want him anymore.
But there's got to be some sort of there's got to be some sort of expiry date on that. I think the Ocon and Mercedes train has passed. He would have to do something spectacular for Mercedes to want him back.
Yeah.
Like beat Alonso next year.
Yeah,
it's not happening.
pretty much.
You can't get on top of Ricciardo. He's not going to get on top of Alonso.
No, I mean we're only 2 races into the season, but I mean, yeah, he's not at that level just yet, is he? So.
I don't. I want him to do well. I'm not one of the. I'm not saying it because I dislike him. But again,
But you do.
No, I don't dislike him. But I thought he was doing an okay job. He deserved to be in Formula One when he was in Force India. But I don't think he did a good enough job to come back.
It's the fact that he didn't do anything particular in that year.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if he wasn't good enough for... I mean, Russell's seat essentially would have been open for a Mercedes driver, and they went with Russell instead. And he's
not even any FP1s.
Yeah, he did nothing, really, did he? I don't think he was in a car at all.
He just sat next to Toto for most of the season.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure was very exciting for him.
Although he sometimes got moved out of the way for Billy Munger.
True.
Yes.
Although, of course, Billy Munger can't sit next to Toto anymore because he's too busy presenting Channel 4.
It's true.
We have 2 more races confirmed. We'll move on to those now.
Yeah.
Moving swiftly along like a podium Dalek.
They're ace, and the cameras on them are cool as well.
I hate them more than anything else in the world.
polarizing views there.
It's a remote control car with a wooden box on top of it.
Yep.
What's to hate about that?
Lots.
I'm not hearing any reasons.
Just have a man that's in the bubble on his own. He's in his own bubble. I don't care what happens to him
It's
socially.
like a man in a hamster wheel. I'm
Just
picturing.
make it the Watchman.
It was a John
the man that
Travolta
gives
movie.
the people the watches.
Well, I don't think he's there at the moment.
Oh no, he's there. I saw him the other week. But yeah, just pass the men the trophies. Pass the trophies.
No, I like the Daleks.
No.
I think they should stay even after the bubbles and social distancing.
What I'm not sure
But
about
memory.
is what's it called, the Walk of Heroes or something that they do when they go to the podium.
Why aren't they using the podiums still? I don't understand why we're not using the podiums.
I think it needed cleaning after that anthem on Sunday.
Oh,
That was a bit gushy.
True,
Let's be
yeah.
honest.
Yeah,
That was awful.
Yeah, the
What
comments
did I mention? What did I say to the group?
the comments I saw were somewhere between is that a yogurt advert or is that Austria's Eurovision entry for next year?
Yeah, yeah. Someone got excited behind that
it
panel,
was
didn't
just
they?
here is every possible Austrian cliche in 1 minute,
Styrian cliche because it was the
It was the Styrian
anthem of
anthem,
Styria that they
as
played.
discussed last week.
Apparently, it was.
I mean,
was-
yeah,
It didn't sound anything like what was
the
coming from your
Christmas
phone on
shopping
YouTube.
anthem. Yeah,
I was not feeling very well yesterday, and when that anthem came on, I had to have a moment where I thought, "Wait, is this real life?
Is this just fantasy?
No, I thought, am I actually looking at this, or has something happened in my head, and I've slipped into some sort of fantasy world where I am now insane?" So I did have to message the group just to be sure.
And we did nothing to convince you.
No, you didn't. Not really.
Nah.
Which made me think I'm fine.
Yeah, if we'd have told you were fine, you'd have panicked.
Yeah, yes, Chris, everything's fine. Go back to sleep. Oh, fuck.
Shit, I already am. So anyway, we have 2 more confirmed races, bringing the total for the season up to 10 definite and on the calendar, because we have Ferrari's 1000th race at Mugello.
Looking forward to that.
So if
That
we've had
should be good.
If we've had the Styrian Grand Prix, are we going to have the 1000th anniversary Grand Prix?
Maybe.
It's the Grand Prix of Tuscany.
Tell you what,
Is it?
someone's
Yes,
having
officially.
a crash. Someone's going to have a big crash at Mugello.
I don't know, because
I'm going hats.
simulator wise, it's going to be a bit of a rush to get the official simulator bots to go round and transfer the data to.
Unless you're
our
Ferrari.
Factor have already got it because most of the team sims are based on the R Factor software.
Oh, are
yeah.
they?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll
The
stand
game that
corrected
you
on
buy, R Factor 2, is a massively cut down version of what the teams use in the Sims.
Yeah, and so okay, that
So the laser scan
that's
data,
maybe not a thing.
laser scan data is already there.
Yeah. Ferrari, of course, have experience having tested there just before the season started. However,
Perks of owning it.
Yeah.
However, their data is probably not going to be any good to them.
No, because
given
they
as to
drove
how-
a 2018 car, which is going to be markedly different from what they're driving at the moment,
Much
Yeah, that
more
one worked.
competitive than what they have at the moment.
and lasts longer than a lap.
Yeah.
Some of the younger drivers could do quite well here because a lot of the feeder series go to Mugello.
Okay, so you could see sort of Albon.
Yeah,
Russell,
that lot will have much more recent
Latifi.
experience
I
there
mean,
than anyone else.
European F3 was using it right up to the point where it merged with GP3
Yeah,
and Formula Renault Euro Cup.
I think even British F3 always do an international race, and they've done Spa the last couple of years, but I think they've done Mugello before.
Never seen cars race at Mugello. The only time I've ever seen Motorsport Mugello has been MotoGP.
I don't think I've seen cars race around Mugello
No.
before.
I'm looking forward to it. Should
It's
be
good.
good.
It'll be
It's quite a good circuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, seems to produce good bike race.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to watch MotoGP, which is this weekend. MotoGP's
Yes.
back.
In Spain,
Got to,
Spain.
Spain.
They never
the
race
Red
in
Bull,
Spain.
the Red Bull Grand Prix of Spain, with all the Marquezes.
In Spain? Where they did like 4 races last year.
I think they've got 5 this year.
Oh
I think
my
they've gone
God.
properly wild with the Spanish races.
Well,
And they're only
Yeah.
they're only having one. They're not even racing in Austria, are they? I think F1
No, I
booked
think
all
they
the
might
dates.
be, I can't remember.
It is double Marquez for Honda now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But moving back and adding those extra 2 wheels, which is the bit we talk about because we are 3 legs, not 3 legs, 2 wheels.
Yes.
The other race is in everyone's favourite venue, Sochi. At least there won't be any difference between this and previous years' races because crowds.
I think we said this last week. I don't think I've ever noticed a crowd at Sochi.
Didn't I remember reading something that Russia were going to do the best they could to have people at the circuit?
Yes, they are going to. They are going to have crowds. It is the first race that tickets are going to be on sale for.
But so far during a race, I haven't missed. It's been a bit weird at the grid walk when there's been no crowd, and it's a bit strange after the race when there's no crowd.
Yeah,
but during the race, not bothered.
No,
to be perfectly honest,
I'm not missing the crowd shots.
No.
Oh yeah, I mean,
they've covered the where the crowd sit with like sponsors and things,
and turning the turn 9 and 10
I think
grandstand into that big light. But
yeah, that was quite cool.
I think
actually,
it looks a bit dead though. You know, when you see the helicopter shots and there's no people there.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, at the same time,
when Hamilton crossed the line doing that amazing lap, and he went 1.2.
You would normally get the cheer, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't miss it as much as I thought I would do, but I definitely miss the people.
There should be people there. I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but
IndyCar had crowd back this week, so it'll be interesting, I think, to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're missing crowd noise, it can't be as bad as the one round of the boxing that was on BT Sport on Friday night. They held a boxing night in the studio, about 5 or 6 fights. First round, I think it was the second fight that put fake crowd noise on. By the second round, they'd got rid of it because they'd realised that was a really bad idea.
It was not the kind of fight where the crowd would have been that enthused.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah, I'm not convinced about the fake crowd noise in other sports that they're pumping in.
They do the cheering, don't they, in Formula 1 when they're doing when the anthem is being played for the podium. The Formula 1 anthem.
No, we still need
behind it.
Still need your whistle shitty flute.
Oh. You're asking for it on command again.
No, it still doesn't work. But Sochi is not going to be any different to normal because even if there are people there, you're not going to notice them because it seems to be sort of a bit
unless it's Vladimir Putin.
He'll be there.
He will turn up with 5 laps left, which is his usual MO. What's he
still think mental.
What's he going to do this year? There's no cool down room for him to go into.
Maybe he will ride out on one of the podium bots
on a horse, topless
on the podium bot, pretending it's a horse,
handing them the trophies.
Yeah.
Yes, which will be full of vodka, and
imagine that
fun.
The Formula 1 theme tune with Vladimir Putin sat on one of those boxes. If
it doesn't happen now, I am going to be disappointed.
That could be on a white card in Cards Against Humanity. That could be an answer.
The driver comes out riding the trophy because in Mother Russia the trophy presents you.
Oh wow! Yes.
That might be the one.
Fake applause there. And it looks like Portimao and Hockenheim are... Well, Portimao is probably going to be announced next. It looks like sensibleness has taken over and they are not going to race in Canada towards the end of October.
Yeah. Though Canada's doing doing better.
Canada's doing okay with COVID, but there's a slight issue of, it's Canada, so you have to get the snow
ice
plows
tyres.
out.
Yeah. Yes. Snow plows in October. And
Hockenheim is still on the reserve list for any races that drop out, or can they be fit in? I think Hockenheim is good until about the middle of November to race with the weather conditions.
Yeah, Germany's all right weather-wise.
It might rain, but at least you won't get the sub-zero temperatures that they probably expect.
I wouldn't mind betting against Hockenheim if it is installed in the calendar, having 2 races there.
Yeah.
It's a fairly central location.
Yeah.
And, they could do what they've done in Austria.
The German Grand Prix and then whatever
state it's in.
Yeah.
We don't know what the cut-off is, do we? We don't know what the cut-off is for when they have to stop adding races.
They have been given permission by the FIA to race in January if they want to, haven't they?
Yeah, I think they can go up to second week of January.
Okay,
but there has to be a
Grand Prix.
That seems
for both
ridiculous, doesn't it?
Christmas weekend Grand Prix.
I'd be up for a Christmas Grand Prix.
Oh my God! Please call it the Christmas Grand Prix.
Oh no! Come on, it's got to be the Grand Prix of Lapland, regardless of where it is.
So it's got the Nürburgring then.
The Nürburgring Grand Prix of Lapland. Imagine the market outside that.
The Nürburgring has held the Luxembourg Grand Prix. It's held the European Grand Prix. It's held the German Grand Prix. I'm sure it's held something else as well. But
I want the Christmas Grand Prix of Bethlehem now.
It was in the Middle East. It's possible.
Maybe that's going to be Bahrain 2.
Yes.
The week before Bahrain.
Yeah. Bahrain 2. Bahrain harder.
So 10 races confirmed, 3 partly confirmed with the 2 Bahrains and the Abu Dhabi race, and more to be added. Vietnam is still saying they'll do it. The government's behind it because originally they didn't want 2 races 6 months apart because it's going to be round about the time next year that it was going to be this year. But now the government have said, actually no, we've created this circuit, sod it, let's use it. China is still not off the agenda, but I can't see it happening.
No, I don't think so. Same as Brazil.
I think it'll happen.
Might do.
I don't think it should happen.
I can't see it happening. I think China are putting more restrictions on people coming in.
Although they've had second peak, haven't they?
Yeah. Although there's now huge restrictions on anyone entering Hungary from the UK.
Oh yeah, but that's
travelling
from
in the Formula One bubble,
yeah.
aren't they? Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I was going to say because that was an article in the Sun. You thought, well, Hamilton's not coming from the UK.
No.
Yeah,
Hamilton
going
risks
from
prison
Austria.
going to Hungary. No, he doesn't. Shut up.
Yeah.
You useless.
Doing research from at
excuse
least
for
5 or 6
journalists.
more reputable sources, it's UK passport holders. Full stop.
Right. Okay.
But they're essentially fine as long as they just go hotel, circuit, hotel.
Does Lewis have a UK passport?
I assume so.
Probably.
He's British.
But he's not.
half the paddock, if not more, will have UK passports.
Yeah, maybe. But
I mean, Nico was out handing out Rosbergian ones.
I was only thinking because the amount of years that he's not lived in Great Britain, I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't under a UK passport anymore.
He might have a second one, but I imagine he would use his UK one.
Yeah, but
Switzerland
I
is,
mean,
isn't it?
a lot of the travelling F1 types have been saying that it is going to be really restrictive. It is literally hotel circuit, and if you step outside those 2 places,
You're going to prison.
15,000 euro fine and prison.
Yeah. That's fine.
So no nipping home.
Yeah.
But restrictions or not, if everyone's staying in the bubble, we'll get the race this weekend. So I mean, we could be looking, if Portimao and Hockenheim happen along with Vietnam, we could be looking sort of 16, 17 races.
Yeah, I think that's what Chase said, wasn't it? He said sort of 15.
What was it? 15 to 18 was the ideal. I just don't think we'll be seeing anything in the Americas. Canada, US, Mexico, and Brazil will not happen.
No, I don't think so.
Brazil definitely won't happen.
No.
And Texas is looking very
Yeah.
iffy at the moment. Canada doesn't have the weather for the time of year that they'd go. And is it worth shipping everything over to Mexico?
No.
And I don't know what the situation is like in
It'd
Mexico.
be interesting
at the
if any
moment.
of our listeners live in Texas actually to get in touch with us and tell us where it's like, because it's so just the media and news around the whole situation in different countries.
I've been speaking
seems
to friends.
so muddy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've been speaking to the friends of mine in Texas who I've mentioned on the podcast before, and it's the local government in their area doing the best they can to sort of sort things out, but there's just too many people listening to the federal government and just being like, yay, let's go and have fun and having parties, and the police just can't stay on top of it all because there's too many people just disobeying the rules and it's spreading like wildfire. That's only one account from one family who live in one city in Texas. So,
I think what we don't really grasp over here is the whole size and scale.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Texas has got a problem, but which bits, because how many times over could you fit the Isle of Man inside Texas?
Yeah, and then you've got like you might see massive
Thousands.
you might see massive numbers, but it might be massive numbers from a single city, which would probably be Austin. So that's not ideal.
Well, they've got three of the most populated top 10 most populated cities in the US are in Texas. So they have a lot of people.
Yeah, Dallas. This is something like 7 million people, I think, live in Dallas.
I think Houston's quite big. San Antonio's quite big. Yeah.
And each of those cities has got an entire stadium. You could fit the entire Isle of Man in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, easily.
With a bit of space in a few of them.
Yeah. So, it's really hard to say. And, we haven't got a clue what's happening race-wise or COVID-wise or life-wise outside of our little bubble here on the island.
No, so it's mainly European, but with probably a few Middle Eastern races, isn't it? This particular
it looks like the three in the Gulf will go ahead.
I did see somebody questioning the legitimacy of this championship as well. Somebody said if Lewis Hamilton wins this championship, it's not going to be thought of as being legitimate because it will only have won a championship after like 15 races. And one of the first replies to it was just like, Michael Schumacher only competed in 16 races when he won his first world championship.
So does that mean everything Fangio did was for shit?
Yeah,
because that was 8 races, wasn't it? Back then. Yeah.
Isn't DTM isn't that like an 8 race championship or something like that?
10, I think.
Was it 10?
Something like that. Well, this year I'm not sure, but I think usually it's about 10, 12 races.
Yeah.
WEC 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's still perfectly
fair
legitimate.
Enough, they do race for 3.5 weeks per race.
Yeah.
yeah, fair point. Yeah. And then at the other end of the scale, NASCAR,
the World Enduring Championship.
75 races in 6 months.
That's mental.
And then they start the knockout playoffs. Shall we move on to the Styrian Grand Prix?
Yeah. Let's look back at what happened at this weekend's race. As we've already said, it wasn't the most exciting, but
qualifying was.
Yeah, I just think it was because of the first race of the season made this one look a little bit like its boring little brother, and it wasn't really.
No.
Yeah, it was fine.
I mean, if we'd have had that as a mid-season race, we'd have gone, that was quite good. Yeah, I enjoyed that. Better than France.
I don't think I'd have ever said it was quite good. I think I'd have always said it was a bit boring, but there was some good racing in the midfield.
Yeah, I thought it was an okay race.
I mean, qualifying was all over the bloody place.
Well, delayed, wasn't it, to start with?
Was it 46-minute delay?
Which I thought was a strange delay.
I think
not 45.
No,
not
they couldn't
50.
have done their 10-minute klaxon 1 minute earlier.
Yeah,
it was down to somebody actually in the paddock being able to read the weather radar.
Yeah,
I think it was down to somebody in the paddock finding their nuts and saying, actually, let's send these guys out. Yeah. Which hopefully might be the way things are done from now on.
Well, the problem wasn't. Did you see any of the F3 race on Saturday morning?
Yes,
that was too wet to send cars out in because they were aquaplaning in a straight line.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it was red flagged, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Something does need to be done with Formula One, though, as far as the wet weather driving goes.
It's the wet weather tyres. The tread on them isn't deep enough to get through the standing water in a lot of places on the track.
Bring back monsoons.
Yeah, which means that if the rubber's not actually making contact with the road, you will get aquaplaning.
Yeah.
So the tread needs to be deeper so that you can actually get a contact patch, not rubber on water.
So maybe it would be a good idea to make the inters slower with a larger range and use. Make
the inters more like the wets are now.
And make the wets
like the old monsoon
tyres. Yeah,
the monsoon tyres, which like when somebody went through a puddle, oh my god, the amount of water spray! I'm pretty sure you could have,
but like that
cancel
weather,
a hosepipe ban with one car through a puddle.
I think there was parts of qualifying where that weather was as bad as the F3.
Only parts, but. The track was draining by that point with F3.
Oh yeah, no, but
the water was increasing.
Yeah, but I think that's more because the F3s don't displace as much water as the Formula 1
cars. And don't forget
do.
as well, the drivers in Formula 1 are a lot more experienced driving single seaters.
I'm not knocking the F3 drivers. But all I'm saying is that this should be the precedent of, look, we stuck them out there in awful conditions. Most of them stayed on the track. Nobody had a big crash. It was It's how it should be.
I mean,
nobody wants to see anyone get hurt, but Formula One, there has to be danger there.
The other issue was there was low cloud cover between the circuit and Graz, which was the nearest hospital, and now the medical helicopter has to be able to fly at a certain height.
So the question then has to be: does Formula One need to look into having a better mobile medical facility with it?
Possibly, but we get the same thing here, don't we, with the Isle of Man TT, when the cloud cover is low and the helicopter can't fly at a certain height. There's no racing. It doesn't matter.
Oh no, absolutely.
But even if it's dry and wonderful weather, and if there's low cloud cover.
But I'm just talking about how much money Formula One's worth.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah.
The thing is, though, they wouldn't just need to have one medical unit, would they? They'd need three, because there's three sets of F1 infrastructure going around the globe. So,
yeah, but
it's not something that you can bring to every race. It's something that you have at every continent.
But why? Because they bring the cars. So
but the rest of the infrastructure
just don't do it with the medical stuff.
Goes by boat.
But just don't do it with the medical stuff.
I don't think you could, with the amount of medical kit you need, I don't think you could actually transport that by plane.
I don't know if you can transport all those Formula One teams.
There is a medical centre there anyway. But that's the first port of call.
There is usually a permanent facility at the circuit.
Yeah, there is.
What you're talking about is a mobile trauma unit, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's what you're looking for.
Because
I'm not saying it's possible. I'm just saying
for anything more serious, you need to go to hospital.
So I think the rule they said they have at the moment is you have to have a full trauma unit either within 20 minutes on road, or if it's not within 20 minutes on road, which is not in Austria, then you have to have helicopter within however many minutes.
Austria's in the middle of nowhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I just thought it was good because how many times have we sat there during the beginnings of wet races or wet qualifyings where the commentary team is going, why aren't we on track now? Why aren't we racing? We could be out there now.
Pirelli.
No, I don't think it is. I think it was obviously the memory of Jules Bianchi. That was how great that. I forgot his name. And is still there. But I do think they've, for want of better words, thrown the baby out of the bathwater with that incident.
I think another problem is, though, the amount of water that's going under the car actually disturbs the aeroflow, and it means the cars actually can't grip as much if the standing water is at a certain depth, even if it's within the tread range of the tyres.
Mm-hmm.
The cars are running that low that the grip's going to be
change
lost.
Have a minimum running height during the wet.
Yeah,
this is the thing.
If the cars were running higher, but the regulations aren't there, and blah 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 blah.
But this is what I'm saying before. Something needs to be done.
For mandatory tyre choice.
Yeah,
you must start the session on wets, or you must start the session on, or the weather has now got to the point where every car must be. So everybody has to go into the pits and change for wets if they're middle of the race or
change Parc Ferme regulations. If it's wet, you can do what you want to the car. You can revert back to having wet weather setups, because at the minute you set your car up and cross your fingers for what you get.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing. They used to race a lot more in the wet when they could have a specific wet setup that they could do in the morning between warm up.
I think they'll have to have that. They'll have to have that in 2022, because the reason they don't need wet weather setups now is because the cars create so much downforce. It doesn't actually matter as much because the car's constantly being pushed down. But once they strip a load of that downforce away, I can see them needing specific wet weather setups again.
The Venturi tunnels and things like that will actually help with downforce in wet weather conditions.
What for the ground effect stuff?
Yeah. Being sucked to the ground rather than being pushed to the ground. The only thing is, as you were saying before, the ride height. Although it would be incredibly folly to think that Formula One won't think of this.
Yeah.
That of course, if you have a circuit that's particularly bumpy, the Ayrton Senna thing, the thought from the official thought of what happened during his accident was that the car grounded out because of the tyre pressures were too low, and when he was going so fast to suck the car to the ground, it hit the ground, bottomed out, and
he essentially aquaplaned on tarmac.
Essentially, because his tyre pressures were so low, it was just enough to bottom out on a bumpy on a bumpy circuit.
Yeah.
You don't want to have that.
No.
Again, it would be folly to think that Formula One would do that. You could have the same in the wet. You know, if you're going through any sort of like wet where they're being sucked to the ground, that would cause a problem. But that's what I mean. The Venturi tunnels would hopefully take a lot of that as a problem away, in that you would lose a lot of downforce, but not all of it.
Yeah, I think the top and bottom of it is we raced in Spa in 1998, and that was ridiculous.
Again, though, that was with wet weather setups on the cars.
Monsoon tyres, I think, as well.
Yeah,
in
it was
98.
monsoon tyres
Yeah.
back then. But this is
So at the moment, the rules aren't there to physically allow the cars to race.
No.
For those who don't know,
I'm just saying they need to fix it.
Yeah, monsoon tyres were like extreme wets, weren't they? If you hadn't already gathered that, you were like intermediates, wets, and then extreme wet.
Yeah, it was. I think they called them full wets and extreme wets.
Yeah,
We shouldn't make excuses for it. What we should be saying is that that's not good enough. I'm afraid. You know, if you're going to be a series that says we race in all weathers, then you need to be prepared to race in all weathers.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely agree. It's just that over the years the rules have been changed that much that it's kind of shoved that off to the side.
Send Grosjean out for a cycle lap. If he can get round, then it's fine.
You can't get round in the fucking drive.
Damn it.
Well, he didn't do on Saturday. He did 3/4 of a lap. Ended up in the gravel with a water pump problem.
I was going to say, I think there was something wrong with his car all weekend.
Well, he lost Friday morning with brake issues. That was brake pressure, not brake discs. So that wrote him out for that. He managed to run Friday afternoon, and then Saturday did 3/4 of a lap on outlap pace, and then 1/4 of a lap on. Oh, I think I can make it back to the pits.
and also for the second race in a row, I think he was the first one to have an issue in leaving the circuit because something went on. I think he ran wide at turn 3, like lap 3, lap 4, something like that.
Yeah, I've been. The main sort of slogan of the season is "Growing the Grav."
Yes.
I'm quite enjoying that one.
Yeah.
But we'll start the race at the back.
With the team at the back.
The team at the back.
A lap 1 and a lap 3 DNF.
Although, to be honest, the lap 3 DNF, the race was practically going to be DNF from lap 1.
Well, yeah. Did you see the broken floor?
Yeah, like wires hanging out and all sorts.
Well, I saw where the floor was meant to be.
Well, it was dragging along the actual ground, and like Sean said, there was bits hanging out of the car that should have been hanging out of the car. And had Charles Leclerc continued, he would have been black flagged easily.
But yeah, Ferrari just the suckiest of the suck.
Well, let's not say like Ferrari just yet. What was Leclerc thinking?
I don't know, because he stopped and then stopped. Well, he braked and then accelerated again.
There was no room. Like
he came off the brakes, didn't he?
Yeah.
As he went into the corner.
But the reason he went up onto the back of Vettel's car is because he had that little room. The curb threw him in the air onto the back of the car.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. As I said on our chat, a lot of people will point the finger at Charles Leclerc. Rightfully so. It was
he
a silly
pointed it at
move.
himself, to be fair.
Yeah.
afterwards.
He held his hands up and said, "Oh, that was my fault. No excuse is good enough for that. You know, I've taken both cars out of the race."
I didn't realise that Vettel was walking behind him at the time and punched him in the chin.
Yeah, that's the bad thing. You know, you never want to take out anyone really if you're in a race, but definitely not your teammate. He also took himself out of the race. But let's think about why Ferrari were so far back.
Yes.
Yeah. Why were they starting in 10th and 14th?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it would have been 10th and 11th, but Leclerc had that penalty for holding Kvyat up.
Yeah.
But yeah, why weren't they at the sharp end?
And I think that was harsh as well.
Well, you see their engine. They were cheating like fuck last year.
They were holding up Kvyat.
I think the holding up Kvyat thing was a bit. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a little bit ambiguous, to be honest. But yeah, it was a penalty. But
yeah, I mean, don't forget the stewards see tweets that we don't look at as soon as they come out.
Of course, but I mean, you don't win a race on lap 1. You cannot win a race. You can totally lose a race on lap 1. But you cannot win a race on lap 1.
Yeah, how many times has Seb spun?
I mean, and exactly as I think it was the Sky pundits were saying about the concertina effect into that corner, because it's such a long straight and everyone's going so fast.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden the guys at the front are doing nothing, whilst the guys at the back are still hammering it towards the braking zone. everyone's going to bunch up. So you need to have that patience. You need to just be like, oh, you know, a little bit of awareness around you. You don't want to cause damage to your car, to anyone else's car. So for Leclerc to do...
And on lap one, more than any other, you're going to be 2 and maybe 3 wide.
Yeah.
And I think Leclerc tried to make it 4 wide in a corner that can only take 2.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. Did he actually catch Vettel's wheel as well as the curb at the same time, and that pitched the whole front end up? Because
I think a little bit, yeah.
That kind of looked like it to me.
He hit the yellow sausage curb, didn't he?
Which lifted him a bit, and then I think he...
into Vettel's car. And took Vettel's rear wing off. Vettel got on the radio and just said, I have damage.
Yeah.
He's learned from Kimi.
Yeah. Well, Kimi was right behind him.
Yeah, you got a face full.
Yeah, Kimi's onboard was interesting.
Yeah, Kimi was angry that he had to downshift all of the gears to find a gear that would work.
I think it was interesting listening to Vettel in the the pit after the race. Oh, sorry, during the race when it was going on.
No, it was a pit of despair. He sounds broken.
No, I didn't think he did. I thought he sounded fine. And that's the thing. I thought, fuck, he must have really not been expecting that car to be very good through the race, because he doesn't sound upset to be out of it.
Just said there was nothing I could do, and to be fair, there was nothing he could do. Mm-hmm. And again, the commentary team that described that commentary that I was watching, they said the same thing. What could Vettel possibly have done in that situation? He couldn't have gone left. He couldn't have hit the brakes. Leclerc just came at the inside of him and hit him, and he shouldn't have done. But also, why a Ferrari in the midfield?
Well, Mark Priestley had an interesting tweet after qualifying saying that the rain should have essentially levelled out any engine deficiencies that Ferrari have got. So they were there down in 10th and 11th, not because their engine isn't there, but clearly because the chassis is not there either.
It's just they've got nothing to... They were supposed to have brought those upgrades as well, weren't they? Forward.
Yeah, well, what we saw of them on Friday,
they got nothing.
Didn't really do a great deal. I mean, you know, a wet qualifying is a great leveler, but they were anonymous in all the way through both practice sessions that we saw. And
that's me disagreeing with you, by the way. It's saying that, you know, it isn't a leveler because Ferrari are still awful.
Yeah. But the thing was, we kind of saw in a lot of cases the grid pan out as we really expected it to, even if it had been dry. And we saw Ferrari one out in Q2, one at the arse end of Q3.
And we said in many pre-season...
But with all their upgrades, though.
Which they now don't know if they work in a race situation or not.
I didn't expect them to be struggling to stay in Q3.
But yeah, we've now got the situation where, you know, where do Ferrari go from here? Because... we said in so many pre-season podcasts that it was almost definite that Leclerc and Vettel are going to come together at some point, because Vettel's going to be driving for himself, and Leclerc's going to want to be the guy who, you know, I'm in charge now because you're leaving, sort of thing.
But we didn't think they'd be crashing each other out for the last point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we didn't think we would be. You know, we thought maybe a podium or a race win on the cards. We didn't think it would be over 10th.
Yeah.
No, two bald men fighting over a comb.
Yeah, exactly.
It made me remember Remember when Vettel seemed to have a decent car when Alonso had left, and someone asked Alonso whether he was upset. That Ferrari seemed to have come through, and he said no, because I don't think Ferrari can win a world championship. And Ferrari have done their best to prove him right every year since.
Was it last week when I said, like, for the last World Championship Ferrari won?
Kimi Räikkönen.
Yeah, they won because
McLaren lost it.
Yeah, because McLaren fell over themselves trying to give it away.
I do think Kimi's that season is a bit underrated. His results all through that season were pretty...
Especially
immense.
Towards the end of it as well, when he caught up. Because didn't he win like 5 races on the bounce or something?
He won an immense amount, and all the ones he didn't win, he was pretty much on the podium.
Yeah, he was 17 points behind with 2 races to go when they would give 10 points out for a race. So there was 20 points maximum on the table, and he was 17 behind.
I think that's the thing, because even on that last race, I remember Kimi end up world champion, and me thinking, how? That wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to be a McLaren driver.
Yeah.
But yeah, where do Ferrari go? And who's going to be replacing Binotto? Because there will be a human sacrifice, and it will be him.
Spinotto.
I don't know. But that's the thing, though, isn't it?
Vettel didn't even get a chance to face the wrong way.
No, he didn't. He didn't get a chance to spin.
Well, his rear wing did. It kind of twisted before it came off.
Yeah, but I mean, Vettel, there was no spinning.
Well, he said during testing, didn't he, that the car felt like much better. With the upgrades.
Friday.
Yeah. He said it felt like a different car.
Oh, the onboards showed that he wasn't fighting it as much.
Yeah. But the only issue there is, so maybe it's easier to drive, but it's clearly not very fast.
No.
But again, saying that, we didn't see it in the dry. Maybe they could have worked. Maybe they had better race pace and they could have worked through the field a bit. I mean, even on the harder tyres, the race before, Leclerc had good pace when he was on the hard tyres. When he got out,
all right pace, yeah. I think he was helped by the safety cars.
Well, he was
helped. He would have been swamped by the guys behind him.
He was helped by the safety cars, and he was helped by all the other teams having technical problems as well. So I don't think that car is a podium contender by any stretch of the imagination. But we didn't see what it was like.
Yeah, we might get to see just how bad it is at Silverstone.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. As soon as we get out of these sort of like engine limited circuits, as soon as we get out of there, they're going to really struggle. Spa's going to get fucking murdered on that straight.
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait.
All right, Williams next. Looked so promising, and then where the hell did George Russell's race pace go?
Oh, he went off
through the
circuit.
gravel.
Yeah,
he went off
great
early.
Qualifying again. We'll talk about the Saturday.
Yeah.
A monumental effort to miss out on Q3 by, was it 700ths?
Something
like
stupid
that.
It was just shy of a tenth.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That was fantastic.
Nearly faster than a Ferrari.
Yeah, it's like on genuine pace as well in the wet.
Q2 was the only time that that Ferrari were faster than Williams by the end of a session.
Mm-hmm. Well, even just because I don't get it wrong, I realised people were going out and setting faster times, and obviously George ended up like in the bottom, so he went out. But even just the fact that Williams at any point in that session was top of the timesheets, is stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with last year's car, it would have been in similar circumstances. Like, you've got your early times, then Williams goes out first of the next lot when you understand the conditions a lot better, and the track's starting to come to you a little bit, and you'd be happy you put it in third, even though he had a lap on everyone else.
It's a shame as well, because I think if he hadn't have gone off, I think he might have got a point. I think he might have been.
I think so. I mean,
Kvyat.
he was trying to brave it out, wasn't he? He was fighting Magnussen into turn 4 at the end of the back straight, and he did that thing where he didn't back out, Magnussen didn't back out, and they got to turn 5, and the car just snapped on him, and he ended up going across the gravel.
It was a good save, though.
He sort of got it onto the grass.
It was a good gravel save, not to hit the barrier.
Yeah. He went onto the grass, didn't he, and brought it back round onto the circuit. But by that point, every car I think had gone past him. He was last, apart from the Ferraris. And then I think he fought his way back up past Latifi, didn't he? And then that's pretty much where he stayed for the rest of the race. He was honest though. He said, "Look, I made a mistake. I was trying to brave it out and I lost control of the car."
I mean, Williams, I'm quoting Autosport on this one, Williams aren't entirely sure where his race pace went. They've not said if he took any floor damage when he went through the gravel.
Sideways across the gravel.
It's not going to be
great.
No,
there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
Latifi again. He's got to stop the pootling around. If he's got more pace, it's time to show it.
He wasn't. I wouldn't say he was.
He wasn't massively off the pace.
What I will say
he was
is
good
that
in the
Williams are the only team to finish the race that were 2 laps down on the leaders.
Yes.
Now Ferrari was 70 laps down on the leaders.
Yeah.
but
that was Williams' last year pace, where
almost.
Yeah.
So maybe last week flattered them a little bit. Maybe this week because of the damage to Russell's car, and I don't know what happened to Latifi, but it was disappointing to see that. That they might still have a bit of a pace deficit.
Let's see what they're like in Silverstone.
Yeah.
It's almost like Hungary's not going to happen, but I mean Hungary's an anomaly because it's Monaco without the walls. But let's see what they're like on an engine circuit.
I think if you're going to put is George Russell going to score a point? It's probably the time to put your fiver on George Russell, isn't it, for Hungary, and then probably not again after that.
Maybe.
Although it would be so good to see him score a point at one of the 2 British races.
It would be, but
it's not going to happen barring
he's a
Hungary.
favour, I think.
Hungary's kind to British drivers in firsts.
You do get anomalous results, don't you, in Hungary? You do get the odd sort of random...
Mansell, Button, Hill.
Yeah.
I think Coulthard had a good run at Hungary as well.
Mm-hmm.
Possible.
Alpha next. Not as anonymous as there were. Kimi in 11th and Giovinazzi in 14th.
Giovinazzi is in trouble.
Speechless.
Giovinazzi will not be in that car next season. Ferrari are going to put somebody else in the car, and I'm leaning more towards Schwartzman.
I have said this since pre-season. It's
I think
Schwartzman.
Sean is correct. But
has to be somebody.
The fact that Kimi was behind him...
Could be Mick Schumacher in his fire extinguisher cock.
That's not how you impress them, I don't think.
No. But the
for anyone that missed that, Chris, explain that one.
There was a headline that had been truncated somewhat because of the fact it's clearly on a mobile device, and it was Mick Schumacher misses out on a podium after a fire extinguisher goes off in his cock. So I might have to retweet that later.
I think you should.
Please do.
But the fact that Kimi Räikkönen got caught up in the Ferrari incident at the beginning, lost a lot of track place, and then after a few laps caught the back of the train. I think it must have been a safety car, wasn't it? He was back in the train again, and then Alfa Romeo had to say to Giovinazzi, Kimi's faster than you, do you want to let him past? You don't want that if you're 23 and your teammate's 41.
These are facts.
Mm-hmm.
There's like you were saying before, Lee, about the whole Alonso thing. If that happens to Ocon next year, that's it. Ocon's done. But
you can't say Ocon with the same quality of man bun that Giovinazzi's got at the moment.
No, he does have man bun. But I don't know. I like Giovinazzi. I want him to succeed. He's not succeeding at the moment. I said earlier on that he had to put Raikkonen away this season. This is probably Kimi's last year in Formula One, and he's just
Part 4.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll replace both drivers,
but he's just not. He's not on it, is he, at all? The car doesn't appear to be there either. But for Raikkonen to be one place outside the points and Giovinazzi 3 places behind does not bode well for the young Italian.
I think Kimi will get signed again next year. The more I think about it,
it's if he wants it, isn't it?
It's if he wants it. But the thing is, if you go in with 2 green drivers, or like even if you're forced to keep Giovinazzi, you go in with a guy with 2 seasons under his belt, somebody that hasn't any experience in Formula One. Then you go, right, rule change next year. Let's talk about new cars. It's not a good time.
No, I think it's Ferrari that own Giovinazzi and have him in that seat, and I think they're going to run out of patience with him. He's been passed over for the big boy Ferrari seat twice.
To be fair, Ferrari might not even notice. They've got their own problems.
Yeah, they might have forgotten they own him.
Yeah, that's true. Who's this AG guy on the payroll? We just keep sending the checks to him every month.
There's plenty of drivers that they don't know why they're still getting paid. He's right there with Giancarlo Fisichella
and Giuliano Alesi.
Luca
Mark
Badola.
Chenet, I think, is still technically a test driver, isn't he?
He just turned up, started wearing a Ferrari suit, and never left.
It is.
I have to leave the pod room for 2 minutes.
Do you need a wee as well?
Yes.
I'm desperate for a wee.
Shall we hit pause?
No, carry on.
Pit stops.
Because you're going to miss the Haas thing.
It's fine. We will still be
Haas
talking
is
about
probably
Haas.
a good time for a pee break.
To be honest, if you're listening to
What
this
is
now,
there
go
to
to the
say
loo while we're
about
talking about
Haas?
Haas. Well, they finished the race with all wings intact. They didn't hit each other. They were neither rock stars nor vankers.
Yeah, they were very anonymous. I can't actually... I know roughly where they
kept
finished.
each other company, didn't they? Was it 14-15?
12 and 13.
Oh,
I mean, they were battling with the Alphas from time to time.
Cool.
And
that car looked good again in the wet.
it did.
Yeah.
K-Mag didn't look terrible during qualifying. Grosjean we didn't get a chance to see.
Grosjean didn't look great, though, did he?
No. I mean, Grosjean, like Chris said, had the first off.
Yeah.
Running wide. And there was really nought about them, which, to be honest, is kind of good in some ways. Because usually when we talk about Haas, they've fucked up.
Yeah, but a result of them just like not crashing. We can't applaud that.
No.
They're not on the grid next year.
Do you know what? They're the new Sauber in the blue, white, and gold Sauber days when it was anonymous Sauber.
Yes,
They are the new.
Apart from
also took part in the weekend.
Sauber had one good race, didn't it, with NASA in that livery?
NASA.
Was it like Australia where he got like fourth or something, and then they
I don't think
vanished.
NASA ever got fourth.
Maybe not fourth.
He might have been, he might have been running fourth when he was pitting later than everyone else.
Then they vanished for a season. But I don't understand how Haas is still going to be in Formula One next year. It's just a pit. It's a pit for Gene Haas's money.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to make the decision based on what happens this year. And all right, they're spending a lot less on front wings.
Mm-hmm.
So far,
time. But we're only 2 races in, admittedly. But yeah, they're doing what the last thing that we wanted them to do, which is making up the numbers.
No, Felipe Nasr did get a 5th in Australia. That's
higher
than I thought it was.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you missed the entirety of Haas. We've just come to the conclusion that they are the new anonymous Sauber.
Yeah, the
evidence
left
indicates
the track
they were there
a couple of times. I think didn't Magnussen have an extra pit stop somewhere along the line?
Might have thought he could have gone for fastest lap in all the shenanigans at the end, which was never going to happen.
I was just saying before you came back in the room, we must be getting to the point now where it's time for Gene Haas to go, I've got loads of money, not this much.
I think he might be looking at selling the team. I don't think he'd just pack up and go.
Any other Canadian billionaires out there fancy a punt?
Or if anybody fancies buying 3 legs, 4 wheels, a Formula One team, because you want to do nothing but laugh at us for an entire year.
Maybe that's what we should encourage. We should encourage somebody to buy Haas and then buy us so they can rename it like 3 legs, 4 wheels racing.
Is it necessarily a Canadian billionaire though? Is it not the Mazepins that are still?
Oh, that's
in
the
point.
The Mazepins are still knocking about with
all their Russian oil money.
Huge amount of sponsorship of.
Mazepin sounds like a rapper.
I can't imagine the
Mazepin.
Nikita Mazepin and Rich Dad, whose name I can't remember. Mazepin.
Dimitri.
Yes.
Does sound like a Mortal Kombat character. Yeah.
He looks a bit like he could be a Mortal Kombat character.
We're on the way to getting an F1 team. We've got our own esports team now.
It's true.
Yeah, but especially with these masks that everyone's wearing now. Like they look like the Mortal Kombat masks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just quickly while we're on this, I'd like to point out that as far as the Formula One masks go, the masks that the team seems to be making, they seem to have made a device which makes people touch their face every
constantly.
3 seconds.
Yeah, none of them fit very well. Who is it? Latifi, isn't it? That's had to have one like custom made because his nose is.
Yeah, someone should have got in touch with Daniel Ricciardo about that.
And only half the Alfa Romeo garage are in branded ones. Giovinazzi's got his own brand of masks. And on the Kimi side of the garage, they're all wearing disposable ones.
Why would you
that
want
is
an
the most
Antonio
Kimi thing ever.
No, I think that's a very Giovinazzi vanity thing.
Remember who I am.
Yeah.
Is it Italian branded?
It's just like the Sauber colours with AG99 on. He had, I think, red with white lettering, and all the mechanics had white with red lettering. So that they know who's in charge.
Or they remember who
which one's which. With. Yeah, that's the driver.
Leave Kimi alone. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, wearing a disposable one that he just picked up in bulk.
Yeah, why not?
AlphaTauri next. Kvyat in 10th and Gasly in 15th. One of these drivers may be under threat if Vettel comes back.
Yeah, but the one that we think probably is under threat had a decent day.
Yeah. Decent showing by Kvyat.
Was it a point?
Yeah.
Yeah, point for Gasly. Not for Gasly, for the other one. Kvyat.
Yeah, more points than Gasly got.
Yeah, Gasly got shafted on strategy. They took a punt, brought him in early, put him on hards. Didn't work.
I could see them both getting hoofed out.
Had an extra stop, not Magnussen.
Yeah. I mean, Gasly was losing an absolute ton of time on the hard tyres.
The hards were not quick enough and did not last long enough.
But the thing was, when Kvyat switched, because Kvyat switched onto the hards at one point.
Did he?
Yeah.
I missed that.
I'm pretty sure he did. They were running the same tyre at one point, and Kvyat was so much quicker.
Kvyat cruised past Gasly when he got up to him. I don't know whether he'd maybe just made a change at that point, but it was not much of a fight.
But Kvyat's looking useful again.
I think I could see them getting rid of both of them now. in the Toro Rosso fashion.
It's been a couple of years, hasn't it? Every now and then it happens. Good Toro Rosso clear out. AlphaTauri clear out.
If Alfa Rosso are there as bring them up to the big team, well, they both had a go.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can't see either of them get back to Red Bull. So what's the point? In them being
they both had a go, and they both got binned mid-season.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's like now and again? I meant to do it today. I want to do it tomorrow. I like to take all the wires in the podcast stream out and then redo them so everything's nice and neat. I find it very therapeutic. I enjoy it. Do you think that's what like Helmut Marko likes to do with Red Bull with Toro Rosso?
Unplug all the drivers.
Yeah, just now and again, he just like completely
get some fresh ones
strips Toro Rosso out, puts it back, and then sits back and goes.
And then someone goes, "No, wait, hang on." And he goes, "Oh no, I need that one."
Where did I put the Gasly?
Yeah, the problem is, look at all the bits I've got left.
But they have got probably in the next 2 to 3 years a glut that will be ready. They've got Yuki Tsunoda, who podiumed in F2 this weekend. They've got Liam Lawson, who did a shit crash in F3, but aside from that, has looked pretty handy there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've bought Carl in F2 this year, haven't they?
They have. They've got Jane Deruvala in that, who's been very average so far, but looked good in F3 last year. So they might have a couple ready towards the end of either this year or next year.
At the moment, Jack Doohan's in the test tube getting ready for 2 years' time.
Yeah, he needs another year.
So
it's not unlike them to bring drivers back into the fold that have been released from the fold. And Dan Ticktum
is owned by Williams now, so they would probably have to make a negotiation there. But
right,
you can have Kvyat.
I don't know if a Kvyat and a Ticktum is a trade that is happening, really.
Torpedo for Punchbag?
Yeah, but Kvyat doesn't have the thing that Williams need, does he? Sponsors.
He's in Russia, he could probably find one. Although the Red Bull organisation have just taken over all Kvyat sponsorship, so he's never needed to go out and find backing. But yeah, positive looking from AlphaTauri. Car's starting to look a bit better in the right hands.
So does that leave Williams as the only team without points at the moment?
And Haas.
Did Haas get a point in the last race? I can't remember.
No.
Because we did Williams third last week after Red Bull and Haas.
Okay.
Renault. Ricciardo in 8th. Swift. Looking better than he did in that car last year.
Yeah. Bit of a better showing we've already discussed from Renault. Kind of good inter-team battle as well. We saw a few of them on track where teammates were allowed to race each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, in terms of Alfa Romeo, there was no race. But
wasn't a great one at AlphaTauri as well.
Didn't go very well for Ferrari.
Did not go very well for Ferrari either. No, but it went well for Renault. Ocon, defending.
Did it go well for Renault, or did they allow Ocon to destroy Daniel Ricciardo's race?
It might have been smarter to swap them.
I think
we like to see them racing, but in terms of the faster driver is always going to have his race destroyed if he's fighting with a teammate. But I thought Ocon's defending against Ricciardo at first was very assertive, very.
It was fine,
clean.
But I mean, as a team thing.
Yeah.
If he'd have when he radioed in to say that he's got quite a lot more pace, if he'd have been allowed past Ocon at that point, I think he'd have been up there with Perez and Albon before Perez and Albon came together.
Yeah, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah, there were a few seconds behind, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know. It would have made that much impact. It was only a couple of laps. The fight that they had, nobody sort of bore down on them from behind.
It was a good few laps.
I think it was about 2 or 3 laps, wasn't it? They were fighting for.
It was longer than that. Longer than that. I think it was 5 or 10.
Don't forget, you might have had a nap during that.
I didn't have a nap during the race.
I
think I had it in my head at about 3 or 4, but again, sort of zoned in and out a little.
But then Ocon's car ended up giving up overheating problem.
Same problem that Ricciardo had, which is something
Ricciardo had that problem last week.
Yeah.
Troubling.
So our Renault this year's Mercedes for cooling issues, and they can't handle it as well as Mercedes did last year.
Maybe,
possibly.
So does that mean Renault ripped their car off Mercedes?
No.
That's not how it works.
Nobody rips a car off Mercedes, surely.
Well, Renault think that somebody might do, but we'll get to that in a minute.
What, you mean the team that I've got next on the list?
Racing Point.
The pink Mercedes.
Yeah, Renault put in a protest over certain components.
So it's the brake duct, I think, isn't it? That's
It's
the main.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
It's too close to the... Is it the W10 or the W11's brake ducts? So it's too close that they think that there's absolutely no way they could not have copied it. They must have copied it because it's so close in design.
So these parts have now been seized, and Mercedes have been asked to provide last year's for comparison, which will be exciting.
And of course, with only a week to the next race, this could be tricky.
How are Mercedes going to provide that? Because presumably that's in Brackley.
It'd be CAD drawings.
Yeah, rather than the actual physical part.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they've got to register the design for the homologation.
Yeah. Now Racing Point have already been up in front of the FIA and said, look, this car is legal, and the FIA made them show overlays of their car against the last year's Mercedes. Yeah, okay, fine. It's incredibly similar, but it's different enough that it's, you haven't totally copied the car. It's a legal car.
Said this last week. Scarbs has seen it under the carbon fibre.
Yeah, and he says that it's
a different car.
Yeah,
it's got the same aero concept and similar package,
which it will have, with having Mercedes engine and gearbox as well.
Yeah,
but let's be clear on that though. If Mercedes had helped or allowed Racing Point to get involved in the team enough to copy the error surfaces, it's still illegal.
Yes.
Yeah, Mercedes could find themselves in trouble if it looks like they've colluded with the Racing Point to I don't know, eliminate another competitor.
I can't remember the exact lettering of that particular law, but there are certain components that have to be designed by the team. They cannot be another team's design.
Yeah.
So if it's proved to be Mercedes' design, then Racing Point have done something wrong, and presumably if Mercedes have let them have it, that's not great for Mercedes either.
Mercedes did question, apparently, how did you get thousands of photos of our car from last year? So, who knows what's happened there. But Renault have officially protested it. Strange that it's only Renault. McLaren, Red Bull, nobody else around has...
McLaren wouldn't do it because they're getting Mercedes engines next year.
Of course, good point.
Red Bull have said, it looks similar, but it's not similar enough from what we can see to be worth
and
protesting.
it's behind them on the grid, so they don't give a shit.
It's not a threat. Yeah. If any team feels troubled by it, it'll be Ferrari.
Ferrari aren't in the mood to protest anything other than themselves.
Yeah, I think they've got more on the cards.
Too busy.
The team that's most under threat is the one that protested. I mean, I was quite happy, with the idea of Racing Point being up there, but now after seeing it, when you think about all the work and money that's spent in teams like McLaren and Renault, something doesn't sit right with me. I think it's because it's such a grey area, but it's so close to being... it's definitely not in the spirit of the rules, if we want to use that phrase, but I think it's so close to being wrong. If this was Ferrari and another team, and Ferrari were winning, and all of a sudden Alfa Romeo ended up with a car which was remarkably similar to last year's Ferrari that was getting in the way of Red Bull, for instance, or something, we would be going harder on them than we are on Mercedes.
Possibly.
Because that's quickly, because that's the reason they're doing it. Let's forget Racing Point, because obviously they've done the right thing for them. They've got their car now up into maybe the third best car by like a little helping hand from the gods of motorsport right now. But it's the reason why Mercedes have allowed that to happen. They've allowed that to happen to trouble their competitors.
Well, the Racing Point of view is that if these cars are going to be carried over from this year to 2021, and they are, guess who doesn't need to worry about doing that much development over the next year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Guess who can now just start working on their 2022 car and not bother with their 2021 developments at all whatsoever.
It's a brilliant move, and it's if it was available to you, like it should have been Williams. Williams should have been the ones that just turned around and said, let's do it. We'll do whatever you want.
And I think this is why this protest is coming. I think there are two sort of 2021 things Renault have got their eye on here. One, if that car is, as we say, not within the spirit of the rules but within the rules, they can change the rules for next year, which means that car has to go next year. Racing Point can't keep it for next year. The other thing is, if they find that's perfectly legal, there's a better Renault-powered car further up the grid for Renault for them to rip off for next year.
Yeah.
That's what I suspect it is. Because if they genuinely thought that was illegal, they would have protested it last week, not this week. And I think it's also a little bit sort of bonus for them that it disrupts Racing Point as they're meant to be moving
as leaving
circuits.
from one circuit to another.
Yeah, because they were last at the circuit.
Yeah.
They had to go to the stewards 3 hours after that race finished, and they've had to leave bits of car and let stewards poke and prod. And
I think Racing Point is really going to pay dividends for Mercedes once again in Silverstone. Once we've got out of Hungary and out of these engine limited circuits, I think you'll find that the Racing Point will be at a very similar pace to the Red Bull, and it won't be the. We'll see what Christian Horner thinks of it then,
of course.
But, but I don't think you'll see Racing Point, McLaren and Renault. I think you're going to see, unless McLaren, because McLaren got a load of upgrades, haven't they, for Hungary?
Yeah.
But and I'm sure everyone will have upgrades for Silverstone. Yes. But I think you're going to see Mercedes, Red Bull, and Racing Point on the back of.
No, I think we'll see Racing Point doing quite well in Hungary because they've got the whole Mercedes aero concept, and Hungary is an aero circuit.
Oh yeah. It's not going to be shabby. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a good time for Renault to protest because we're coming up to a circuit where Racing Point is going to be strong because we know that aero package is strong because of what Mercedes were like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just good petty timing.
Yeah, a nice quality bit of shit stirring.
Yes, which we like.
Sorry, just quickly, it'd be interesting when we get to these power circuits to see what the Honda engine is actually like, because I'm surprised at a circuit, because this is the other thing to remember about Red Bull, and this goes back to what I was saying before about what Max is going to choose to do, because you have to think, like, are Red Bull further behind Mercedes than they were?
Hard to tell
because they were winning. They were winning that race.
But in Australia, at the start of the year, they weren't that close. So it's tricky to tell, isn't it? Are we at the Austria part of the year, or are we at the Australia part of the year?
We're a circuit they're good at.
Yeah, but in Austria last year, Mercedes had other issues.
Yeah.
Mercedes have gotten rid of their problems, I think, more than Red Bull have found some.
You know, Mercedes actually had car problems in Austria last year, which meant that there was a Red Bull and a Ferrari at the front of the race.
Yeah, that's good point.
That's why Max won last year, or Leclerc would have won last year if Max hadn't have made that move.
Mind you saying that, we did think that Mercedes were going to start barbecuing their gearboxes up until a race ago.
True.
But I mean, you can put last year's Red Bull win down to, I wouldn't say full on shenanigans, just broken Mercedes.
No, but they've done it before, and they've always been good around Austria. It's been one of those ones where we've got to Austria and we've thought Red Bull have got a chance here. Red Bull didn't have a chance at Austria this year when everything was equal and it was like on a dry circuit.
And I know we're not talking about them, but I do just want to point out at a circuit where they would normally struggle, Mercedes have got both cars across the line, first and second in both races.
They did not last week, did they?
No, they were across the line for
Hamilton crossed the line second.
We hit them with his penalty. He was fourth.
Sorry, I missed your small notes. Small
That's
print.
a fine point, actually, given the trouble they were in as well.
That's a circuit that they struggle at, and they still managed it. May not have done. I had Alex Albon past Hamilton cleanly, but
I think Mercedes will win every race this year.
That would be a feat, very much so.
And it could be easily done, but we haven't actually talked about Racing Point's performance in the race.
strong because
Good.
Perez had a terrible qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean to qualify 17th and to finish 6th, and it would have been 5th if he hadn't collided with Albon and
It could have been 4th if he hadn't collided with Albon.
lost half his front wing.
Yeah, it was a strong performance from Perez, a really strong performance from Perez. And yet again, for the second race in a row, you stick Lance Stroll in a car that's all right, and he does all right.
There are a lot of 90-degree corners there, which is his strong point.
Doesn't matter. It was... Everybody was in the same sort of situation. I think Lance Stroll came up from, where did he qualify? Like 13th, 14th?
Yeah, it was in that neck of the woods.
He still made it through Q3, which for him is an improvement these days.
I think the other thing to remember is they struggled in qualifying. They struggled in the wet for some reason. But obviously that car is still a decent enough car, even when it's struggling, that he didn't end up in a wall.
Yeah, but the only wet running that they had to go on from Mercedes last year was Germany, and I don't think that was worth it.
No. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's
ignore that. Just get the car round. Yeah. It'll be fine.
Maybe they got last year's wet weather Germany set up.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
but they are looking strong, and they're in that battle for third.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lance Stroll said post-race, I think we probably had the third fastest car here today. And I thought about it, and I thought, it's probably correct.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at where they qualified and then where they ended up finishing the race, they could probably have done better had,
I wonder if they're closer to Red
Lando
Bull.
Norris not just decided, this is my turn now.
Yeah, I mean, if Perez had got a better qualifying, then we might have seen something different.
Mm.
But I think with Perez in qualifying though, the way that Q1 was finishing, it was going to be the later you get your final lap in, the more chance you've got of getting through to Q2. And he was one of the first to finish his run.
He would have had another fast lap, but Giovinazzi.
Yeah, he had to back out, didn't he?
Yeah, there was a red flag.
Yeah.
Are Racing Point the Newman Martini Williams?
Maybe they were setting, like you're saying, setting fastest laps in the middle of the race.
But you know, like when Bottas wasn't like the the capable race winning driver he is now, and Massa was Massa. We used
capable of winning and losing a race at the same time. Schrodinger's driver.
Yeah. We used to say, like, how good is that Williams?
I didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know. I wonder if that's how good's the Racing Point? Is it as good as a Red Bull? But you've got Lance Stroll, who's just doing an okay job because he's been given a good car.
Yeah.
And Sergio Perez, which is one of those drivers that can do a good job in a car, but he's not. He's never going to make that car go quicker than it's capable of.
Well, we've got a track coming up this season that Stroll is good at because he's good at Monza.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame we don't have Baku this year because that's a good circuit for both of them. We'd actually get to see, because I think if we were racing at Baku this year, we'd get to see what that car was capable of because both those drivers are really good in Azerbaijan.
Yeah, it's a good point.
That would be the one that tells us. I think all we're going to have to go on is what's it going to do when we get to Monza in September.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but encouraging for Racing
quickest in the speed traps.
Yeah, encouraging for Racing Point without the whole protest thing.
Taking the copyright infringement.
It was Renault
aside.
that protested Haas, wasn't it? With the floor.
I thought it was Racing Point.
Was it Racing Point that protested Haas?
I can't remember actually.
I think it was Renault that protested Haas's floor.
But
don't forget as well, Renault had an illegal brake situation last year, didn't they?
And don't forget, nobody protested Renault during the whole McLaren-Ferrari Spygate because somehow Renault ended up with all the Ferrari data as well, and they got away with it scot-free. Alonso wasn't involved in that either.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he's been planning this move all along.
Do
you reckon that's it? He's talked to everyone, signed with Renault, and gone, oh, by the way, Racing Point have got this.
Yeah. Maybe he's got like a dead man switch on the USB case, so it only unlocks at the end of this season.
McLaren next. Last lap Lando.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, disappointing that he got a 3-place grid drop for... Was it impeding in practice?
It was ignoring yellows.
It was overtaking two cars
yellows.
under yellow, which he said there was. He agreed with the penalty, but there was nothing that he could do because the two cars that he overtook were on in-laps.
Got you.
And he was on a flyer, and if he'd have actually braked to stay behind them, he would have cooked his brakes, flat spotted his tyres, and probably ended up in the gravel. And it was just bad timing.
Yeah, but I mean, he took the penalty and did very well with it. For Carlos Sainz to qualify brilliantly in third as well, and Lando I think he started ninth, and then they kind of swapped places. Yeah. Lando was way up in fifth and still third in the championship. This race, and
McLaren did a place swap with about 4 laps to go for Lando to go and chase down. Well, originally Ricciardo.
Yeah, and then Ricciardo and Stroll got in a bit of a.
Yeah, he was the winner of that, really, wasn't he, Norris?
Yeah,
and then the Perez pass was an absolute bonus.
Perez was there on the last corner. So yeah, that was again an eventful last lap for Lando, and he said it was one of his best drives in Formula 1. He said it was his best drive in Formula 1, despite the fact he got third last week. He said that driving from where he started to finish fifth was a much better drive than last week's one. So he's turned up this year, hasn't he, so far, Lando Norris?
Looking good.
He's done what I was saying Antonio Giovinazzi should be doing, and I don't mean by finishing third and fifth, but like he's turned up. He's there. He's doing a lot better than he was doing last. And he wasn't terrible last year by any stretch of the imagination.
And he had a lot of bad luck as well.
Yeah.
He did, and he's got 2 finishes that he would have snapped your hand off for if you'd offered them to him before the season started.
Yeah.
It was very obvious last year with McLaren that it was a rookie and someone who's got a few years and knows what they're doing. And this year, Lando has stepped up to challenge Sainz a bit more by the looks of it.
Yeah. I mean, judging by the 2 performances that we've seen this season and the way he's actually handling the car, you wouldn't say he was a second-year driver. You'd think he'd been around about as long as Sainz. Because he's got... there's something about his racecraft that looks different this year. He wasn't making mistakes last year.
He's not tentative like he was last year.
He's now, there's a gap, I'm going for it.
Well,
before it was, should I or shouldn't I?
Seidel turned around and said that the best thing they've done this year is give the drivers a predictable car that they can push, and they know lap after lap they're going to have the same car every lap.
Yeah. Great. Good stuff.
And Sainz did get fastest lap as well.
He did, yes. Yeah, Carlos Sainz.
2 races, 2 fastest laps for McLaren. We did not ever see this coming.
No. I think Lando's doing what he needs to do as well, because when Ricciardo turns up at that team, he needs to be turning up to Lando Norris's McLaren, not Sainz being ahead of Lando. So all of a sudden Daniel Ricciardo walks in and says, "Oh well, I'm just taking your last number 1 spot."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They get on well, but Lando's going to have to, I think Lando will make Daniel work for that. They'll have quite a battle on their hands next year, but we'll see. It's going to be interesting, and it's good to see that McLaren are in the mix again, much like they were last year. But it's been sort of affirmed so far this season.
I mean, obviously Ferrari's low position helps, but hey, you take what you can get.
It's not their fault that Ferrari is shit.
They designed a better car.
Yeah. You can't go, oh well, if Ferrari were up there, because they're not up there.
Nobody showed pity on McLaren when they turned to crap in the last year of Mercedes' power.
No, you could argue that McLaren should have always been up there because of the team they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, Red Bull next. Verstappen in third, and Albon still not got that podium yet.
He was a long way behind as well.
There was a gulf in class between the top 3 drivers.
Albon was a long way behind Verstappen, and Verstappen had a free pit stop over him as well to try and get the fastest lap.
And when he had his pit stop, didn't he still end up like 20 seconds ahead of him?
No,
I don't think it was quite 20.
It was 20. It said 20 seconds when he came out the pits, but then by the time of the first time in loop, it was about 8.
Right, I thought he was at 40 seconds ahead behind him at one point. I'm convinced.
Don't think it was quite that much, but it was a good, comfortable chunk.
Even still, you shouldn't have. The 4th place man shouldn't have a 20-odd second, full pit stop behind your 3rd place man when that 3rd place man is your teammate.
Well, the problem is if they were actually in a team that was capable of fighting Mercedes, that's a big enough gap that if something happens to Max, Albon isn't there to capitalise. And the role of a number 2 driver is, if your teammate's not winning, then you should be in the position to win.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what happened with Albon during the race, whether or not he had issues or anything like that. I didn't hear anything, but
did he take some damage later on when he had the sort of slight coming together with Perez?
Well, that's
he was behind by that point, though, wasn't he? That didn't ruin his day.
that's what we were talking about before. Perez, in a racing point, was there to challenge the second Red Bull. It didn't go well, but it could have gone worse for Albon again. We saw that meme before. Black Mercedes, silver Mercedes, pink Mercedes.
It was on the same bit of track.
It was exactly the same bit of track, yeah.
Obviously not as a bit in Brazil, but...
No, yeah. But we all winced a bit, didn't we, when Perez and Albon hit? Oh, not again.
I didn't win, so I went, ooh.
But
that thing you did with your eyes just then, that was weird. We'll try and stream next week.
I have seen some people, and with very short memories on Twitter, saying, Albon's seat got to be up for grabs now. He was so far behind Max, that's ridiculous. It's not right that he's that far behind, but he was only inches away from making a clean pass where he would almost certainly have won the race a week before.
Caveat, if...
no, he's in an AlphaTauri.
If Max hadn't have gone out, if hadn't have retired last week, he would have won the race. He'd have already been ahead of the two broken Mercedes.
Broken Mercedes?
Yeah,
the Mercedes were
sorry,
both broke.
2 weeks ago.
Last week.
He'd have pushed them harder. And
he would have pushed them harder. And
he would have probably broken the Mercedes completely by pushing.
Or he'd have already been in the place that if they had to drop their pace, I think they'd have probably just had to let him go.
Yeah, probably would have done. Yeah.
So see, the thing is, I'm not ragging on Albon because I do like him. He seems like such a nice guy, and I don't forget it was pre-season. I thought Albon was going to be pushing Max.
Yeah,
remember? I was wrong, but
you're wrong so far. But
yeah, it's early.
Yeah, it's early. I seem to be only good at predicting the return of drivers. But
or what's happened in the past.
Yeah, I'm good at predicting the past.
That's redicting.
Very good at it. But I can understand people going, he must be under pressure because it's fucking Red Bull.
I don't think he's
your Max Verstappen's teammate.
Yeah, I don't think he's under pressure this year because it's two drivers in AlphaTauri who've lost that seat before. But yeah, depending on how driver market goes,
depends how the rest of this season goes.
Yeah.
It's going to be,
but a better performance kind of from Red Bull, I guess, than the
they've got two cars over the line in third and fourth, which is the positions that you would expect given the relative pace between them and Mercedes this weekend.
Yeah.
So on paper, Red Bull did what we thought they were going to do. It's
Correct.
how they went about it. The devil's in the detail.
Yes.
Quick thing on Albon's seat and the possibility of Sebastian Vettel going back there. Do you not think that Red Bull were clearly, when Sebastian Vettel left to go to Ferrari, insulted by the fact that Vettel left? It was a shock to the team.
Oh God,
Don't forget they treated him like shit for the rest of the season that he was there.
Exactly.
For 2014, they put all their eggs behind Daniel Ricciardo. Yeah.
But do you not think that mentality might be a bit of dickwagon if they turn around and bring Sebastian Vettel back to their team and turn him into a race winner again?
Don't forget the way that the Red Bull racing organisation works across both teams is you are not contracted to the team. You are contracted to drive one of the Red Bull cars. And Helmut Marko will decide which one you go in. Franz Tost and Christian Horner have about 2% of say in the matter.
Oh yeah, I do, but I don't believe if Sebastian Vettel like Max Verstappen, he can't be moved down to AlphaTauri. It will say in his contract, I am driving a full fat Red Bull. You can stick your Tories up your ass. And I think Sebastian Vettel will be in the same position. He wouldn't sign a nebulous Red Bull contract.
No point in putting a 4-time champion in his mid-30s in the junior team as well. That's wild.
But I think for the other three drivers, they've got that stipulation.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They could stick Albon in Toro Rosso for Hungary if they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, under normal circumstances, take away the bubbles, the Red Bull drivers the Red Bull organisation drivers will turn up to Milton Keynes on a Monday and given a set of keys, and then they will find out when they get that set of keys which car it works.
Yeah,
I would like to see Sebastian Vettel in a car again that he's comfortable driving without all the Ferrari nonsense that flies around before he retires.
Well, whatever that car is, it ain't going to be red.
It won't be red.
No.
I don't think anyone's going to be happy in that red car. Can you imagine how Sainz feels? Spare a second for Carlos Sainz at the minute.
Yeah, he must be wondering what the. He's Ricardo
I
from
wonder
a couple of
if
years
that's
ago.
why Lando's got on top of him so quickly. Yeah, I wonder if his head's dropped a little bit.
buyer's
Maybe
remorse.
what's coming.
I've seen that. I've seen what I've got to do next year.
Yeah.
Ouch.
You know,
And she ain't pretty.
Yeah, I don't speak Catalan, so I can't say what the Catalan is. But I think I might have dropped a bollock sign in that day.
I think I might have dropped a bollock here.
Yeah, Sainz's English is pretty good. I'm sure.
That is true.
Senor.
Not in Catalan. It's something different. Never worked out what it was.
Can't remember.
Yeah. That just leaves Mercedes. That qualifying lap from Hamilton, 1.2 seconds.
Ridiculous. One of the best qualifying laps I think I've ever seen.
Mark Webber was on Twitter, said exactly the same thing.
It's up there with that Singapore lap.
Yeah, Button said the same thing as well.
Yeah, it was.
And then charged too much for a pair of shoes.
Far too much for a pair of shoes.
89th pole.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
That's barking.
Yeah, given that the old record was 68.
He also snaffled an extra record, didn't he, this year?
14 years in a row with a pole or something like that.
Pole position 14 years in a row. I think it's really weird. Like like every now and again, it's like Lewis Hamilton snaffles another record.
I thought it was 14 years in a row with a win as well, which is a record.
It was one of the two.
It could even be both.
That's his own record, is it? And finishes inside the points. He broke his own record for that.
He's won a race every year he's been in Formula 1, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So I think he's actually broken the record for the largest number of records broken in F1. There is actually a Guinness World Record for holding the highest number of Guinness World Records. Which, if you lose that record, you then technically lose two.
It's probably the only time that I'll ever quote James Allen, and in a positive light.
I'll have an espresso, please.
No, it was when in the first race of that, I think it was Hamilton second in Australia or third. I think he was second, wasn't he?
He crossed the line second, but he was demoted to fourth.
No, in Australia.
Last year.
His first race.
His first race, he was
third. In the first ever race in McLaren, he was third. Because I remember watching the 2007 Australian Grand Prix. I don't think I got up in the morning for it. I think I watched it on the replay later on. I know, I'm terrible. But we
didn't have a podcast then. You could
no. But I stayed away from all sort of media and things. Not that like Facebook was huge then or anything, but I stayed away from all media.
Been a thing.
Yeah, well, I think it was.
I don't think anyone talked about F1 on MySpace back then.
Yeah.
But I ignored all sort of like BBC News and all the sport pages and everything. And watched this race. And I was watching this rookie, and I was just like, yeah, go on then. They put this rookie guy in a McLaren alongside a world champion. How well is this going to go? And for the whole race, I just seemed to remember thinking, he's not going to finish there. He's not going to finish there. He'll run out of steam.
Yeah.
And then he finished there. I was like, okay, this guy is like the real deal then.
But I remember James Allen turning around and saying, we have a new hero. He said, in his first Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton has finished third. Considering we're disappointed he only finished third, shows you we have something truly special.
Give him.
Lewis Hamilton has amazingly proved James Allen right about something.
Christ.
What? He drives a Formula 1 car. James Allen would have said that.
It's true.
Bottas in second, number 2 job.
Gained places.
Yeah.
Solid.
I had to overtake Max Verstappen on track after Mercedes. Well, it looked like Red Bull tried to do the undercut, didn't it? And sort of,
actually, we didn't mention this when we were talking about Red Bull, but that scrap that Verstappen had with Bottas gets past, and then Verstappen takes the place back. That was some amazing racing for.
It was great defense.
It
was. But Bottas was made to work for that second place, despite the fact he had the superior car. But if I can just step in here, Bottas now has the experience that he knows when to be patient, and he knows if this isn't going to work, I will definitely get him next time around or the time after that. Where, I think some other drivers...
Small tree.
Yeah, small tree it a little bit, and, that's where their racing at the moment is not quite there. Their racecraft isn't there.
Does anyone think that it was the problems Mercedes had, which kind of flattered Bottas's finish. Because like in the first race we had in Austria, Hamilton was chasing Bottas down and like visibly quicker than him. You know, before the problems started happening, and they ended up sort of holding position before things started breaking.
When they both got "it's James."
Yeah. Now, when everything was right and all like the cars were not going to break, Lewis was he never looked like capable of beating Lewis.
I think Lewis turned up this week. I'm not sure he totally turned up last week.
I think he turned up.
He said that having it ruined his head being demoted to fifth like an hour
was a
before.
bit
the race.
shenanigans.
You get that landing on you on the grid, your mind's going to be somewhere else.
Yeah, but I think if Mercedes didn't have problems, he'd have passed Bottas.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any Bottas 3.0s, and it's good for him to be leading the World Championship, 2 races in.
Yeah.
But I think he wants to take as many pictures of that as possible.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't Bottas 3.0 last week, it was 2.1.
He's not out of the running by any means. We could see quite a decent Bottas run. Hamilton could have a run of bad luck. It happened in 2016. Not trying to say that Rosberg wasn't a worthy champion, but there's a certain element of luck comes with winning a championship, and Rosberg definitely got the luck that year. Hamilton's had the luck in the years that he's won the championship. So it's not out of the question that Hamilton could have a run of bad luck and Bottas takes the good luck. But yeah, when you put the two up against each other in a fair fight, it looked like Bottas was pushing Hamilton at one point, and Bottas then didn't push and then leant back, and it was a bit too much.
It was. So overall, Rockstars and Wankers.
Oh Christ!
Lando Norris, Rockstar. I think he should have been driver
reasonable.
of the day.
Yeah.
That again, goes back to what we were saying last week. That poll takes place too early. As soon as that popped up on the screen, we both said Perez.
Yeah.
And then you get to the last lap, and it's like, obviously
and
not.
And the problem is, everything that Lando didn't qualify for driver of the day, because the voting stops as soon as the checkered flag comes down, and Lewis had already crossed. When Lewis crossed the line, Lando was in 8th.
Yeah.
You've got to put Lewis in for it as well, because that qualifying was just super special, and he was just untouchable. There was no one could challenge him. I think that's whenever you talk about driver of the day, it's not really driver of the day. It's exciting driver of the day.
Yeah, it's performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mercedes were rock stars, no troubles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wankers are obvious, aren't they?
The wankers are
Do we
obvious.
need to even go any more than?
I mean, it's always Leclerc for Lee, isn't it?
Are they red?
It genuinely might be.
To be fair, I think we can go Leclerc and Ferrari for wankers.
Yeah, a dog of a car, and then it tried to mount the other, or hunt the other one's leg without anyone trying to stop it.
I did enjoy being able to tweet Leclerc's cockpit is currently the most sodden place on the track.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that about does it.
Yeah.
Right, jump cut. Well, we've got a jump cut and a half for you this week. Would you believe that we are actually joined on the show by the one and only 3-time Grand Prix winner, Mr. Johnny Herbert. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be on the island. Sort of.
Albeit virtually. We'll have to get you over here at some point soon, though.
Yes.
Definitely. So, Johnny, what have you been doing with yourself during the lockdown? Because it's been tough for all of us.
Yeah, it has. I think the main thing that I probably started again, I dusted down the bike, and I was able to sort of lose a few kilos doing that. My fitness has definitely improved. So I'm actually enjoying it. So I'm glad that's kicked off the fitness routine. So I need it at my age. And the other thing was I tried to go, how do I say? I tried to go into a younger brain, a younger age, which was the virtual racing games with all the young boys like Lando Norris or Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Alex Albon, for example, and do a little bit of race on that, which I haven't done much of. But these guys spend hours and hours doing it because it's good for two things for them. It keeps them sort of sharp from a racing mental point of view, but they use it so much with the team simulator to learn a track, improve their lap time, but also improve the car with new updates that they can put on the simulator at the factory. And it was good to be able to do that. So we were really competitive, as you would expect. I got absolutely thumped by them, as you would expect. Obviously, I only went back about 2 months. I think that was about as far as I could go back mentally. So so we did a lot of that, and it was great that the official F1 game was able to sort of give us that ability to carry on racing.
Oh, that's great. $64,000 question, though. Now that Formula One started up again, but the Formula One game, obviously, it's the new version 2020 is just out now. Are you going to be carrying on with it?
Well, I'm going to be definitely trying to. It's a bit more difficult because obviously the simulator takes up a bit of space. I haven't found a bit of room for it at the present time. But I'm competitive. And because I'm competitive, I will always keep on trying to go faster every time I get on it. But the good thing about it is, and this is always what I think is important, obviously for the future of motorsport and F1 particularly, we've got these young guys who I've already mentioned. And there are young sort of 7-8-year-olds, maybe young teenagers who probably don't have that chance to either go karting, for example, but they can go on a game and they can get close to the action. Now, they might have a Max Verstappen, who knows, turn up at one of these sort of online games that happen. And I know Lando and Max do a lot of that online gaming. I think they did a 24-hour race, I think about less than a month ago, which why you'd want to do 24 hours, I really don't know.
I spend 24 hours attached to a computer for work sometimes, and I wouldn't fancy doing it for fun.
No, definitely not. So it gives these youngsters a bit of a chance to sort of get close and understand and feel what it's like, because they're amazing how close they are to the real thing of a Formula One car, and maybe sort of compete virtually against them in the game itself, or you can actually then compete around the world with various other gamers and professional gamers that there are today. And the nice thing is about these youngsters, they can sort of get on this F1 2020 official game, which is 10th of July, and they can get help because there is a steering aid that is on the game now, which lines are very, very important, because that is your speed. But if you don't quite understand where you need to place the car, you're never, ever going to get that speed. So the assist almost sort of guides them to where they need to be on the track. And that's just something that I think really would, a youngster who's interested in maybe a sport that they've never watched, or it's a sport that they want to understand more about as well. So all those different sort of aids and options that are there, and there's a split screen that's in it, and they can race in Hanoi in Vietnam or Zandvoort in Holland, which was supposed to be on the calendar this year but won't be. But they can race there before the F1 boys even turn a wheel. So there's lovely little quirks that come with the official game, which is lovely.
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking for. Pardon me. I'm looking forward to the Dutch and Vietnamese circuits myself. I've not actually got as far into the game yet to play those, but it's still early in the weekend when we're recording this. How do you think that sim racing would have helped you in your earlier career if you'd have had the opportunities to get more practice in away from the track rather than obviously coming up through karting and lower formulas? Where do you think you could have gone if you'd have had all those extra hours that you could have put in with it?
Well, the only experience I had was when I started, you always used to turn up at a circuit you'd never been before, and you'd walk around it or get on a bike. And quite rarely you could get a road car and drive around it. And then as years have gone on, that sort of stopped. And when we went to Indianapolis in 2000, no one had been there before. So I did it on a virtual game, and that's how I learnt the circuit. And what was the idea was obviously to get as much of your head in the flow of the track, of the corners. And when I went there, instantly there was never an issue with the track straight away. So just purely on learning the circuit, it worked for me. And in the modern F1 world that we've got with the simulators that the teams have, we know how important they are to be able to jump on them, and not everybody can do it. I remember Michael Schumacher at I think it was the Mercedes simulator. He always felt sick when he was on it. He always got nauseous. So he struggled to do that. And people like Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, they've done it for so long. For them, it's not a problem. So they can jump on the team simulator and do a very, very good job straight away. Would it have helped me back in the day? Well, it would have helped all of us if we all had that sort of opportunity to do it. So yes, but I'm glad I sort of did the era that I was involved with, where we had to sort of learn very, very quickly in a very short space of time where the track went. Then you had to then get the speed up. And Monaco, I think, was always, for me, was the difficult one. But of course, now you'll be able to drive Monaco before you even get there. I had to do it in my head, walking around, going back to my hotel room and closing my eyes and trying to go around each corner in my head. It worked, but it would be a lot easier by doing it on a simulator. And luckily, they can do it. But anybody who's not even on a track can actually do it at the same time.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always wanted to ask a driver. I remember I had the opportunity. How long does it take you to learn a circuit? I mean, say for example, you were talking about Indianapolis and you drove that virtually before you drove it physically. But with one of the others that you went to for the first time, how much can you take in during the track walk, and how different is it when you actually get behind the wheel? And how long into a race weekend at a new circuit before you feel comfortable with how you're driving it?
I'll do Monaco again, because when I did my track walk, it was covered in cars. It was covered in sort of plastic drinking cups. So Casino Square wasn't open, so you couldn't walk on the racetrack itself. You had to sort of do a detour. It's still the same today. So you never really walked around the racetrack, because there were just things all over it. There were sort of vans driving around, lorries maybe finishing off some barrier that maybe had to get repaired or whatever it may be. So the only time you really learned then was actually when you drove in the car. Now, how long did it take? Well, Monaco is the toughest one, I think, because it's quite dirty to start with, very dusty. There's buses driving around. They're putting a bit of diesel on the circuit. That's got to sort of be removed by the cars, and you lay rubber down, and that then starts to grip it up. And you sort of go out, and let's say you do a 1 minute 28. You'd go in the pits, you'd sort of talk to your engineer, you'd say, well, it's doing this, that, or the other. Let's put a little bit more wing on the front. You'd go out again. So you're doing 128. Then you do 126. So it evolved so quickly as well. And you was always trying to keep up with it because it was changing so quick. So that was the toughest one. But it's amazing how quickly this adapts to the surroundings that are there and how quick you actually get comfortable with it. So how long did it take? I could say probably 10 laps. That you're sort of pretty comfortable with it. Monaco's the exception because it keeps on improving, but I think probably about 10 laps-ish, something like that.
That's still remarkably quick. I've always said top-level drivers, they're more than human.
Yes, but modern day, 10 laps is a waste.
That is true.
It's a waste nowadays, so that's why the simulators are so important now, because they don't want to lose 10 laps. They want to be lap one, right on it. So that's where, again, it's changed. It's changed a lot.
I mean, it has changed the whole of the sport. I know you're very short on time today, so thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you on the show again and talk for longer, and hopefully we can sort something out, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions that our listeners would love to ask you.
Yeah, definitely so. Buy the game, 2020 F1. Official, and you can have a little bit of fun like I've been having.
But don't forget, when you do buy the game, take part in the Formula Lee Hot Lap competition that we run every week. And Johnny, if you ever want to send a time in for that, then we've all got something to compare to.
Perfect.
Thanks very much for joining us, Johnny. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye. So, Johnny Herbert on the show.
Yes.
It was great. It was great to talk to him.
Can I be honest here for a split second? Did we forget to put this in the middle of the podcast?
No, I've written
No,
it.
it's on the running order. It's on the
running order for after the race.
Interviews feel like they should be in the middle of a podcast.
It better not be the middle. If we've got another 2 hours.
No.
You're at work in a minute.
We're definitely on the wind down.
Good.
Yeah, definitely. We have got predictions for Hungary. However, I'll just stick those on the website because it involves running through everything and writing stuff down. Send them to me on the group, so I've got a copy of them. I will post those on the website. I've got predictions from Dan and from Josh Levy, who gets to be this week's guest predictor as he won the inaugural 3 Legs 4 Wheels iRacing season at the weekend.
Well done, you, my friend.
Nice one, Josh. Now that we have our own esports team.
Yeah,
that is a bizarre feeling.
I've invested in a Fanatec wheel. Well, I will have invested in it when I actually get to the bank to put the money that needs.
Is this birthday treat?
But, yeah.
Nice.
Birthday treat and a bit.
So yeah, we've got Hungary to look forward to next week. We found out this week that live blogging software wasn't absolutely brilliant.
It's been
been
rubbish for a long time.
It's been letting us down for the last couple of years. So join us on Discord.
Yeah, we'll do live blogs on Discord.
Go to the Watch Party chat on Discord. We'll be on there.
Yeah.
Everybody else will be joining in. A lot more interactive. A lot of good conversations going on.
Yeah, we can actually speak with you, through text by those mediums rather than, you have to comment on a certain post on the old live blogging software, which just kept crashing or kicking us out or jamming up or posting blank posts.
Every race you had to make yourself an administrator.
Yep,
which felt like if you're not an administrator, that's above your pay grade.
Yeah.
So, join us on Discord, and we'll be there. We've got iRacing coming up this weekend, Skip Barber's at the Charlotte Roval, which will be a good one. Ping us a message if you want to join in with that.
Is that the first race of the new season?
That is the first race of the new season. It's an actual official iRacing league that we've set up this time.
I have to do my best to get involved in that.
Sunday, 8 o'clock UK time.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get in touch with us, email 3legs4wheels@gmail.com, at 3legs4wheels on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and you can get us individually at...
I'm at a total shunt.
At Flood21.
At Sean Cowper.
And at Pablo100.
I'd like to say happy birthday to my friend Arafat Muller as well, and I will use your total shunt next week when it's not 11:15.
And happy birthday to Matt Steele as well, our robo racing and esports expert.
And Jarno Trulli.
What a day for birthdays.
If it's a dull race this coming weekend in Hungary, should we double shunt?
Yes.
Yeah,
right. we could go wild. Yeah.
So we'll shunt next week.
Well, we lose half an hour next week because I've got my Alonso chat out.
That is true.
That's true. Unless, of
if
course,
you remove the word Alonso from this podcast, it's actually only 4 minutes long.
You know what? I was that close. I was that close to doing a new picture of Alonso every day till he races in Australia.
Oh, God. Where is this going to be taking place? On what medium?
His bathroom wall.
I was going to do it on Twitter, and then I thought,
just like Duncan
I will
Bannatyne.
forget.
I'm out.
Yeah.
We will see you next week with a review of the Hungarian Grand Prix, which will be the third week in the triple header, and we'll try and fit in a review of F1 2020 as well. Thanks to Johnny Herbert for coming on the show in association with Codemasters and the new game for that as well.
Quick review, it's pretty good.
Early thoughts? Yeah, I'll agree with you.
Yeah, you can make a fairly accurate brawn.
I will join in with this chat.
And once all three of us have played it, we can. Three of us that play F1 games have played it. We can review it. And Sean, you just don't bother with driving games that aren't Mario Kart.
It's not my jam.
You can review the next World of Warcraft.
Is it your marmalade?
And don't do the marmalade either. We've been through this.
It's your Bovril on toast.
If you want to know what we're talking about there, go to patreon.com/3legs4wheels, sign up for as little as $1 a month, and you will get all the inside jokes, or at least some of them. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.